Welcome, everybody, to the Central Committee stream with Mike Was Right. I hope you're all doing really well. I know I'm doing well. There's two ways to do well, chat. There's two ways to do well. The first way is your subjective, kind of immediate personal situation, right? And then there's doing well in the sense of the human race. Everything and everyone and every, you believe in, you cherish, you love. And the first camp, life is great. In the second camp, things have never been worse. It's actually kind of insane. But I want you to understand something, chat. Today, it's January 13th, 2025. Los Angeles is still facing wildfires that have, how do I put this? We've got a lot of shit going on this weekend. The first thing is Hasan proved himself to be the best left-wing influencer on the internet, and no one is even close. I mean, there's really, like, as somebody who's also in this space, I really find it annoying that he's so awesome and he's constantly raising the bar. However, I think I bring my own value to the table, right? But it inspires me to want to do more myself, which is exactly what you should want from your influencers. And like, I didn't mean to adopt this method, but basically I now know whether somebody is worth fucking with based on their opinion of Hasan. I don't need to know anything else about somebody but what their opinion about Hasan Abi is. And if their opinion about Hasan Abi is that he's bad, I know they're a fucking pedophile or some other freak. It is a massive red flag. Either their politics are so unbelievably, irredeemably dog shit, or they're like a fucking pedophile mad that Hasan is gonna bust up their old boys network. As ridiculous as it sounded, actually true about Hasan haters. No, it is absolutely 100,000% true. Like, Hasan haters are fucking weird. So what are we talking about today, this beautiful Monday? Well, the LA fires have been kind of slowly getting contained, but today the wind is picking up. It's the Chinese social media that all the TikTok people are migrating to. Oh, China just keeps winning. They have the best, they have the best social media app, TikTok. They have the best video game right now, which is Marvel Rivals. They just put out Wukong. Like, honestly, I think America's gonna lose. Like, America's one advantage, the one advantage that America had, soft power of our media, is slowly being hollowed out for neoliberalism, right? Like, they're firing writers, they're firing actors, they're outsourcing to Canada and Northern Ireland. And you're just seeing the quality of our output of our games are just nothing but microtransaction addiction fests. Like, what do we have? There is whispers that a Gaza ceasefire is imminent. Based on the there are rumors that a Gaza ceasefire is imminent, and it's going to be based on what Hamas has been proposing for months. That would stick in Trump's craw. No, this is apparently because of Trump. Basically, Trump wants the Gaza situation to be over before he comes into office. This is another Democrat fumble to Trump. And the reason why we believe that is because of this post. The emerging deal is a catastrophe for the national security of the state of Israel. We will not be part of a surrender deal that would include releasing terrorist hostages, stopping the war, dissolving its achievements, and were bought with so much blood, and abandoning many hostages. This is the time to continue with all our might to occupy and cleanse the entire strip, to finally take control of humanitarian aid from Hamas, and to open the gates of hell on Gaza until Hamas surrenders completely and all the hostages are returned. Why use the word cleanse? You just want to make Israel look bad? Because that's what they're doing, you fucking dumbass. This is this is Smotrich's Twitter account. And this was something that actually people were saying for why Trump would actually be better on Israel than Biden, because Biden is cucked by Netanyahu. Whereas with Trump Trump has credibility with right-wingers that Biden doesn't have. And so Trump has better leverage over Israel than Biden does. Well, I mean, that's not really true materially, but it is true politically, because Biden has thrown himself in, like Fetterman, so far into the camp of Netanyahu that they're basically powerless. Whereas Trump, he doesn't really give that much of a shit about Israel. He just wants to be popular. And Israel has a lot of money and power, their supporters, so he used them to gain it for himself, but he's not loyal to them at all. So in a sense, his Machiavellianism is going to make him better on Israel than Joe Biden's utter corruption. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is dire. Simultaneously, the most hilarious and destructive outcome is Trump being seen as a peace president, stopping Israel. That's not the most destructive outcome. The most destructive outcome is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris continuing the genocide. New report from the Financial Times: California fires could be the costliest disaster in U.S. history, says governor. I want to remind you that the Green New Deal's provisions on firefighters only cost $16 billion. If we had adopted the Green New Deal and invested in the firefighters that would have prevented this disaster, it only would have cost $16 billion. Pacific Palisades, a town, a very wealthy town, has been annihilated. In the Scahill interview, they said Trump isn't as ideologically motivated and instead motivated by the need to have a Nobel Peace Prize. He's got to get this deal. I mean, and the Democratic parties, can I just say something about the centrist Democrats, is that $60 billion in California or $60 billion across the U.S. $60 billion across the U.S. You know how much $1 billion is? Do you know how much $1 billion is? Do you know how much can be done with $1 billion? And this fire is going to end up costing, I think, no official estimate of the cost of the damage has been released, but analysts at AccuWeather last week calculated the economic loss to be at 135 to 150 billion. 12,300 structures have been destroyed, according to CAL FIRE. 135 to 150 billion. Again, reminder, the Green New Deal only cost $16 billion for firefighters. Over 10, I think it was over 10 years too. And you understand that would have stopped this. That you can't afford not to do the Green New Deal. It's just that simple. And our leadership in the Democratic Party, our leadership, claims, and this is what's amazing, is that we can't afford it. The green dream, as Nancy Pelosi said. And who are the main people that are against the Green New Deal? Let's be honest. It isn't the Republicans, right? The main people that sabotage the Green New Deal are, in the following order: Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi, and most importantly, Joe Biden / the real power behind the throne, Barack Hussein Obama. And until you hate Obama with the same fervor you hate Joe Biden, this country is fucking cooked. $1 billion is 20,000 people on a $50,000 yearly wage. 20,000 people. We have 700 firefighters in LA that were fighting the fire. $1 billion of having a national wildfire experts ready to swoop in at a moment's notice and to absolutely attack wildfire. You think these wildfires can't be beat? I want to show you the difference between America and a country that is actually run with a modicum of compassion, a modicum of competence. Here are Mexican firefighters arriving in California to save the day. So a poll just dropped from Mexico chat, and left-wing Jewish anti-Zionist leader Claudia Sheinbaum's approval rating has now hit 80%. I mean, just look at this. Look at this. And here's another reality I wanted to show you guys. Lula and AMLO / Sheinbaum are the most successful progressive leaders in the world. It's not even close. Actually, the answer, the most successful progressive leader in the world is Xi Jinping. But we'll not say anything. We won't get these. We won't let ourselves be called tankies off of something that's objectively the reality of truth. But it's fine. It's fine. We won't get people all overexcited because the reality is it's Xi Jinping. But after Xi Jinping, it is AMLO and Sheinbaum. They buck the trend toward neo-fascism, all while while Western mainstream media portrays them as dodgy populists. Mexico and Brazil today are stronger democracies than America. Objectively true. Lula's approval rating, they've done a presidential election poll in Brazil. Lula at 52, Marcal at 35, Lula at 52, Bolsonaro at 39, Lula at 49, Freitas at 39, Lula at 48, Caidillo at 35%. All from Atlas Intel, the most successful polling agency in the 2024 presidential election by far. We call that the Edergermentum inverse. If you inverse the Edergermentum, you find out who the best pollster is. The Edergermentum inverse. What else do we have going on? And so this is all you need to know, guys. If Bernie Sanders has been president, do you think this is possible? I want you to understand something. Now, I don't ever even want I don't even want an approval rating at 80%. If your approval rating is at 80%, you're going too slow. You know, you're not disrupting enough. You're not changing enough shit. Too many people are happy, okay? In the upper middle classes, if you're at 80% approval, you need to be breaking things faster. You need to be moving faster. If you're at 80%, it's too fucking high, okay? You need to be offending more people, all right? But I want you to understand that this is a country that is America's second biggest trading partner. There are tens of millions of people of Mexican descent in America. The only difference between them is they speak a slightly different romantic language in Spanish. And yet it's like it doesn't even exist in the center-left American media. How come that is the case? That somebody who is a left-leaner, a center-left politician has an 80% approval rating. And it's not even mentioned in an American center-left media. What is going on? That a Jewish woman, can have the approval of 80% of the machismo-obsessed Mexican men, and there isn't a fucking peep in the American media about how popular she is, about how successful her presidency is. What is going on? Can someone explain? And the answer is very straightforward. The CI motherfucking A controls our mainstream media. The elites who profit from Mexico's corruption don't like her. That's why. And every single person who disapproves of Claudia Sheinbaum speaks English and spends their time in Miami. This is a motherfucking fact. They're building in prefab housing after a disaster, yeah. 57 of them, their homes were destroyed in an earthquake. And so they were immediately provided these emergency shelter prefab houses. Does anybody have the way the Chinese fought the wildfires? Have you guys seen that post? I thought I had it, but I must have closed it. Hamas very close to an agreement with Israel. Donald Trump is about to get a ceasefire in Gaza. I'll say that again. Donald Trump is about to get a ceasefire in Gaza. Everybody who told us, oh, you care about Palestinians? I can't believe you voted against Kamala. It cannot be overstated how bad of a president Biden is. Oh, yeah, he was fucking terrible. Anybody who says Joe Biden had anything to do with the left needs to be immediately shit on at a million miles an hour. Legitimately, he was fucking terrible, exactly like I told you he was going to be, unfortunately, in 2022, or excuse me, in 2020, in spring of 2020, when Bernie Sanders dropped out. I called it a majority report and said, I'm going Bernie or bust because Joe Biden is so fucking terrible. I ended up coming home incredibly reluctantly. And I gave him the benefit of the doubt when he got a trifecta. And he was worse than my wildest dreams. In 2022, China's megacity Chongqing was also besieged by wildfires like LA. But Chongqing people did not run away or retreat. Communist Party of China members, soldiers, masses, and firefighters took all kinds of transportation and bravely fought the wildfires and eventually defended their city. This is called digging a firing line, a fire line, chat. Basically, a fire break. If you destroy all the vegetation, you can oftentimes stop the fire from being able to spread so intensely. It was 104 degrees Fahrenheit during the fire. I know it's always a little too easy and smug to say this other country does a better job, especially in the midst of a disaster, but looking at how the US handles disasters versus China consistently, not just the current LA fires, is actually so illustrative of where both societies respectively stand today. At heart, this is all about unity versus division. In China, disasters are always taken as occasions for displaying and reinforcing social cohesion. We collectively face this issue, will mass mobilize to overcome it. We, the people acting as one, can tackle any challenge. The 2022 Zhangjiang fires were examples of this. The fires raged under conditions that were arguably even more difficult than LA, with the fire spanning 3 kilometers in width at high elevation with no readily available water sources or paved roads to reach the fire. The response was an extraordinary coordination between state and society. Firefighting teams from multiple provinces worked alongside tens of thousands of local volunteers who formed human chains up the mountain's 60-degree slopes to pass equipment hand by hand. Motocross riders with no paved roads, only motocross could reach the fire, formed supply chains up narrow mountain paths. Using tactics like controlled burning, fighting fire with fire, the collective efforts managed to contain the blaze in just 8 days, despite temperatures above 104 degrees Fahrenheit and 40 degrees C, for those of you who use that communist thermometer. What made the response particularly remarkable was its whole of society nature. When engineers needed to rapidly cut a 10-kilometer fire break through dense forest to protect the mountain's core, they worked around the clock alongside volunteers who helped clear trees with chainsaws, student volunteers who passed water bottles up the slopes, and local restaurants that shut down normal operations to cook free meals for firefighters and volunteers. The state provided the command structure and professional corps, but it was the spontaneous mobilization of society, from high school kids to 95-year-old villagers cooking for firefighters, that gave the response its overwhelming force. And the whole of China was cheering the efforts live on social media, sharing encouragement and shouting, "Come on," to the people on the ground. When the fires were fully contained, it wasn't seen as a disaster anymore, but as a story of collective triumph that reinforced what China meant in people's mind. The contrast with what we're witnessing in LA couldn't have been starker. Rather than unifying society, the fires have become yet another battlefield in America's culture wars. The right blames DEI initiatives and female leadership in the fire department. The left points to climate change, denialism, or billionaires' water usage. Some of it's probably right, but the end result is that a society that could be pulling together in a crisis is instead tearing itself apart over competing narratives of blame, even as the fires continue to burn. This is absolutely 100,000 quadrillion% true. It isn't that climate change isn't a cause. It isn't that billionaires aren't using too much of the resources. This is absolutely and undoubtedly true. The right is wrong. The left is right. It doesn't even matter, though, because America is incapable of pulling together and fighting the fire. And the richest people in our country are in the blazes, in target of the blaze, and even they can't marshal the resources to defend themselves because wealth in America can't buy you social cohesion. You could have $500 billion in Elon Musk and you can't buy a functioning society that cares for one another. All you can buy for yourself are mercenaries. And everybody knows that somebody fighting for a paycheck isn't looking to die for that cause. They want to win an easy fight and then make a lot of fucking money. And the moment that fight becomes dangerous to themselves, I'm not going to die for money. Money is unspendable when you're dead. Your life is priceless. And this is what we're learning, is that if there's nothing you're willing to die for, there's very little you're going to be willing to actually fight for, because fighting involves risk and harm to oneself. And American society is unraveling at the seams. And the reason why is because we do not believe that this society would take care of us in need. So why the fuck would we risk it all to defend the society when others are in need? That is the breakdown of the social cohesion of the United States of America. And it is because the United States of America doesn't give a fuck about you. Our elites don't even pretend to give a shit about you. They think you're scum, and they can't wait to replace you with robots. And the worst part is, in their delusional fantasies, they think that's possible. This isn't just about the LA fires. It's become a pattern of how America handles disasters, or just about any issue they collectively face nowadays. Democrats control the White House. They control the governor's mansion. They control the mayor's house, the mayor's mansion in Los Angeles, California. All the way. 3 levels of government. 3 levels of duplicative, wasteful government, all controlled by the Democrats, and they're trying to point fingers elsewhere? You're in charge, motherfucker! You control it all, motherfucker! The issue isn't a lack of means. It's very much that American society as a collective has apparently ceased to exist. They all hate each other so much that the machinery of collective action has completely broken down, and even basic disaster response becomes paralyzed as everyone scrambles to fit the crisis into their preferred narrative of blame. This is 100% correct, and why I think America is toast. This is just because no one even cares about accountability or truth. Even the people that are blaming others don't really care. They're not really trying to make the system better. They're just trying to get some sort of short-term advantage to enrich themselves. That's all it is. Some will say it was always this way. The United States never was. That's wrong. But I don't think so. Just remember 9/11, for instance. Not that long ago, Americans could still come together in a crisis. Granted, the collective response that ensued was extremely destructive. It actually did much to shape the divided U.S. that we see today. But at least the basic machinery of collective action still functioned. For better or worse, it turned out to be very much for the worse. People could still perceive a common threat, feel common purpose, and act as one society. What changed isn't that America's political divisions, those have always existed, but rather the complete breakdown of any shared reality that could transcend those divisions even momentarily in times of crisis. All resulting in the hard work of disaster response becoming almost impossible as every decision drowns in this flood of completing blame narrative. So fucking true. Hey, Cosmos84, thank you for the tier 3. All in all, at the risk of stating the obvious, this all shows that American society is not only deep trouble, it is no more. This isn't a problem that can be fixed with more funding or better technology. The issue is that the social machinery converting those resources into collective action has broken down. And as we're seeing with the LA fires, instead of strengthening society as it does in China, each crisis only serves to tear American society further apart. When a society reaches the point where it prefers scoring ideological points to saving the lives of its own citizens, it ceases to function in any meaningful sense. Now, here's the thing that I would say to this man. While I agree with this point, there's something that I think he's missing, is that China went through this already. It's called the Chinese Civil fucking War. It got so bad in China that they had to fight it out. And fortunately for the Chinese, the communists won. And so their nation could be built. In the United States of America, the communists have not won. So, you know, it's easy to look at a society after the communists win and have been in power for 80 fucking years and go, wow, look how important collective action is. It's because they ideologically won. This is, by the way, a regime post. I have no doubt in my life, no doubt in my mind that if Arnaud was not introduced to China in the way that he's been introduced, he would have been a conservative. I have no doubt in my mind. This is what a conservative regime poster looks like. This is honestly what a Chinese nationalist of today sounds like. But these are people that are in their core conservatives. They've just become conservative to communism, which is very, very funny. But this is an example of that. What happens to a conservative brain under a socialized society? This is what they look like. Hey, Mike, it's being investigated that the fires originated from fireworks that caused a fire as a week prior on New Year's Eve, and it reignited. Stupid rich kids messing with fireworks caused over 10,000 buildings to burn down. Really? Why the hell is the Chinese government better than any other? I don't know that I would call it better than any other, but I would say it's... Here's the thing about China. All right. Here's the U.S. for the average citizen. Here's China for the average citizen, right? Quality of life. After everything's brought, you know, average American is doing better than the average Chinese person overall. But the slopes are like this. And in some ways, China has already surpassed the United States in a lot of ways that matter. And so the question you have to ask yourself is it worth trying to fix America as America exists today? Or would we be better off as, say, 5 different countries?
Okay, calm down.
David Sirota, an award-winning journalist and best-selling author living in Denver, Colorado. He was nominated for an Academy Award for his work helping Adam McKay create the story for the blockbuster film Don't Look Up, and he is founder and editor of The Lever. Welcome, David.
Hey, Katie. How you doing?
Good, thanks, you. So what is the major takeaway from what is happening right now, and how is this a question of policy as opposed to just natural disaster, which is, you know, what we're seeing from most of the media coverage?
Well, I think that the takeaway is that this was entirely predictable, but that also that we have to recognize it for what it is. It's an escalation. I mean, this is an urban wildfire, and I think we actually have to process that as something new, at least new in the last 150 years. I mean, there have been fires in cities in the past 150 years, but you really have to go all the way back to the Great Chicago Fire of 1871 to really understand what we're now dealing with. And so I think that is new, and that's what makes this stand out, I think, from past fires. I mean, I'm talking to you from Denver, Colorado. Only a few years ago, there was the Boulder Fire, which was a huge fire for our state, our community. But the Boulder Fire was, in many ways, a suburban, or at least in the wildland urban interface area. The fire breaching into a more densely populated area in California, that's something new and different and should terrify everybody, in the sense that we are back to an era where I think we have to be really afraid of, mindful, and preparing for fire in a way that I think our culture and our society has forgotten how to do. I mean, I can remember my own grandparents having somewhat of a fear of fire because they came from the old country where 100 years ago, where fires were seen as a real threat in daily life. And I think for generations we've kind of forgotten that. In some ways, there's a silver lining to forgetting that, as we forgot it because we figured out how to deal with it. We have to internalize the idea that fire is back in our cities and in our suburbs, and not just in Los Angeles, but in so many other places. That's one of the things that's different about this. And I think clearly we have not made choices as a society and a culture to prepare for that, knowing that that's the threat. I mean, there's two sets of issues here. There's what are we doing to prevent fires generally vis-a-vis the climate crisis? And then what are we doing to protect against the fire danger that is now baked in? I think we're in an era where making choices to live in these kinds of locales without policies put in place to require risk mitigation, really strict policies to require risk mitigation. I guess the short way of putting it is if you're going to build a city in Southern California, with or without the climate crisis, it's going to come with some peril in terms of water, in terms of forest management, in terms of fire dangers, the Santa Ana winds. But if you're then going to have that city exist knowing the climate crisis is incoming and is going to exacerbate the situation, and you're not going to put in place policies that really require a build out of real protection, you end up becoming a sitting duck to something like this. And I'm not obviously saying that this was completely inevitable. I mean, I think there's a confluence of a lot of things that happened here, a kind of perfect storm. But I think it's a wake-up call that many communities like Southern California exist, whether it's floods, fires, hurricanes. Many communities exist in areas that we know are susceptible to these kinds of dangers in the era of climate change. And it doesn't seem like we have yet taken seriously the idea that if these communities are going to exist there, that we need to, at minimum, separate from stopping the climate crisis when it comes to emissions and the like, which I obviously support, but we need to, at minimum, harden these areas and take seriously the kinds of things we need to do to prevent the inevitable disasters from getting completely out of control.
Right. So I actually want to bring something up, and this is not about like a social media war, but I think this exchange kind of captures an important analysis. You tweeted out, the city of Los Angeles is a raging inferno less than 3 years after a bunch of elite pundits and film critics insisted Don't Look Up was too heavy-handed and too unsubtle about the climate crisis. And of course, you helped create Don't Look Up. He tweeted it out. Then Tommy Veeder, who's from one of the Pod Save Boys and an Obama bro, tweeted a screenshot of that and said, cannot wrap my head around the narcissism required to tweet this as the fires are still raging.
It's very important to understand that. Do you notice how the Pod Save bros attacked him personally and didn't deal with the substance of what he was saying? Right? Like, he created a piece of art, Don't Look Up. Now, I'm not a big fan of Don't Look Up. I'll tell you why I'm not a big fan of Don't Look Up. Because it doesn't involve any kind of radical action, right? Like, they basically, the thesis of Don't Look Up is, I went on television and became a rich pundit, and then people didn't listen to my debates. They didn't change policy based on the power of my debates and the power of my Reddit logic. And then we all died. And then we sat smugly around the table saying we tried as the fucking asteroid hit. And like, what I wanted to see in Don't Look Up, and maybe it wasn't appropriate for the narrative that was being created, which maybe make my criticism not as strong. But my criticism of Don't Look Up is basically my criticism of American left-leaning media, which is talking on the internet or talking on the TV isn't the only thing we can do. What we need is an example to follow, you know, like our man right here, my favorite video game, Luigi. Any video game with Luigi in. Basically, what I'm saying is, if in Don't Look Up, the main character had met with the president and smuggled in a fucking pistol and eliminated her in the movie, hypothetically, that would be a better example of trying than standing and sitting around your fucking table reminiscing about your favorite flavor of pecan pie, okay? Like, fuck off. Show me some radical revolutionary action, not just standing around going, the institutions aren't working, me, which is, we have a million of those movies. We need models of revolutionary behavior. Where were the car bombs? Where was the radical action of trying to convince people to care about the asteroid through terrorism? Where was the resistance groups?
And then
where was the assassinations of the profiteers? I mean, obviously, the purpose of the narrative was not that. But what I need is a version of Don't Look Up where people shoot the fucking people that are killing the planet, instead of just a bunch of pundits mad that they didn't get their contracts renewed. We need revolutionary art. We need art that shows regular people rising up against oppressive systems and through bloody struggle winning. Investigators study Eaton Canyon electrical as possible origin of the fire. Oh, I love being paywalled for my fire information. And so that was my argument against Don't Look Up. That's why I didn't like it, because it's like, I went on TV and people were convinced by my debate points is not exactly, in my opinion, trying. I want to say this. Let's assume that I was in Don't Look Up as a character. What I would want my character to do is kill as many of those fucking tech bro elites and the president and politicians as possible to try to get it into the hands of somebody who was competent, who could actually save the planet from the asteroid. All right? Like, that's what my character would do. My character would not be going on TV going, I'm having an affair with the anchor or whatever the fuck. Like, I get the point was to criticize those people who are smug about being right as well. But We needed at least one character that was doing some revolutionary, radical motherfucking action. It's the same effect as when you tell yourself you're going to lose weight and get the dopamine fix from just talking about it. That's what the media does. It prevents real action. Absolutely very true. That's actually very, very true. Is that tweeting about shit, making streams about shit, serves the dopaminic function of actually doing it. Fantasizing about doing a thing gives you a brain reward that is similar to doing the thing itself. I think libs like to manufacture scenarios just so they can say, see, nobody would be able to do shit. Fucking nihilist motherfuckers. Yeah. Well, no, that's what liberalism is about. Liberalism is about creating a situation where everybody tells you you're a good person and bad things happening are not your fault. And you should just keep doing exactly what you're doing, especially if you like getting massages and having a little treat as self-care. Well, go ahead and keep doing it, my queen. That's what liberalism is about. Okay, liberalism is about creating a situation where you can consume in a position of privilege without guilt. Right? You perform morality, you perform goodness publicly, you get narcissistic supply, and then you get to go home and you get to consume like a little gremlin, guilt-free. That is the purpose of liberal politics. To give you permission to be a little slug, a little gremlin, a little fucking selfish little bastard. Investigators study Eden Canyon Electrical Tower area as possible origin of Aldina fire. Yeah, it was PP&G, or PG&E rather. Sorry, PPG is Pennsylvania. PG&E. How to blow up a pipeline also sucks. I think how to blow up a pipeline is literally CIA propaganda. I'm not gonna lie. How to blow up a pipeline fucking sucks. As somebody who watched it, and I hated its guts. And I'll tell you why. There is a scene in How to Blow Up a Pipeline where they're like, we don't want to hurt any pipeline workers. We've got to blow up this pipeline in a way that doesn't hurt anyone. And meanwhile, the pipeline workers just like start shooting wildly at them and shoot them. You know, and it's like, this movie has the fucking wrong message again. I wanna explain something to you, chat. That never mind. I can't even. It doesn't make sense within the logic of the movie. The logic of the movie is we need to do harm in order to make pipelines too expensive. But everybody who's doing that harm should be immune, and we should die and be sacrificed. They also do this thing where they like turn themselves in very dramatic Reddit fashion, which I found absurd. You know what you should be trying to do? If this is what How to Blow Up a Pipeline written by Mike from PA would be like. They would do as much damage as possible, get away with it, and then keep doing it. They would bomb 80 fucking pipelines so that it was so fucking expensive to do the pipelines, people would realize, oh shit, there's a fucking ecological revolt happening. They would just incompetently bomb one fucking pipeline and then turn themselves in. They would build up a revolutionary guerrilla movement. And if they ran into fucking pipeline guards, they would have executed their ass, because that's the only thing that makes logical sense for an actual revolution. Moving on. So that's why I hated Don't Look Up the movie. It's because it doesn't make any sense. Zhao Jing, a former deputy general manager of state-owned China Taiping Insurance Holding Company Limited, was on Monday sentenced to life in prison for taking bribes worth over $11.3 million. Hey, Mike, I saw you liked my post on Twitter with my dad watching. I saw it. Very true. Good.
Tweeted in response to that, David. Cannot wrap my head around the narcissism of Obama bros who killed off real climate legislation, then built a media empire to mostly punch left, scoff at, eye roll, and ignore scientists, activists, and politicians who've allegedly been too on the nose in sounding the climate alarm. So can you talk about this, what you're saying here?
Sure. This is, I should have remembered that everything on social media is read in completely bad faith, taken out of context.
Well, not by me. I mean, I'm
not by you.
Just make sure.
No, but obviously what I was getting at was, look, whether you love or hate our particular movie, that's fine. It's a movie. A movie is not going to solve the climate crisis. You can think our movie was great, think it was funny, think it was bad, you can hate it. All that's fine. The point I was making is some of the criticism of Don't Look Up, and by the way, plenty of other films and cultural products that have tried to touch on the climate crisis. Underneath some of the criticism of the movie and of those cultural products is this is doomerism. This is too on the nose. It's not subtle enough. It's not sophisticated enough. It's not, it doesn't have a light enough touch. And my point was only that the climate crisis itself is not subtle. The climate crisis itself is very on the nose. The climate crisis itself is very, very in your face, as evidenced by what we are seeing in Los Angeles. So the point is that we have a problem in our culture where whenever anybody is blunt about the crisis that we face, there is an elite media class that is very quick to eye roll, to scoff, to sigh, to portray those sounding the alarm as fundamentally unserious, unhinged, hysterical, too on the nose, Debbie Downers. And my point is that that's part of the problem here. So again, I want to be really clear. This was my tweet was not, it invoked my movie because I participated in that movie. And it's something that hundreds of millions of people saw. So I think it's something that people understand the reference to. It wasn't about, I want you to like my movie. I want you to go watch. I mean, hate the movie, love the movie. And social media, of course, is, Sirota's making it about his movie. I'm not making it about our movie. It's about the idea that whether you love or hate our movie, whether you love or hate a TV show, there was TV series about climate, documentaries, whether you love or hate particular cultural products, we need to stop scoffing and berating berating as too on the nose, as too doomer, those who are trying to sound the alarm. You may not like the way one particular movie or TV show or documentary portrays the alarm. You may not think it's very good. That's all fine. But the fundamental point here is we need to start saying, hey, we need more alarms sounded.
Right.
That we need more consciousness, cultural consciousness of the climate crisis. I mean, think about when you watch television. I'm writing a piece about this right now. Think about when you watch television or movies today, not climate movies, just movies, TV shows, sitcoms, whatever you're watching.
Say Nothing right now is what I'm watching on Hulu about the IRA. Yeah.
Great. I want people, when they go and watch these shows and movies, take a moment as you're watching to look at the background setting that you're watching the film, that's portrayed on screen. I'm not saying whether forget about watching a climate movie, right? Just a movie, TV show about anything else. Do you notice that the environmental and ecological setting that you're typically watching the film set in, that it doesn't really reflect the climate reality that we're living in? That what you're watching is a climate and ecological reality from 20 years ago or 30 years ago, right? And I think about the movie Parasite, for those who've seen that movie. Great movie. Parasite is not a climate movie. It's not real. I mean, but the climate crisis is in that movie, right? There's constant rains. They're dealing with some flooding. But the flooding and the rains aren't necessarily a central part of the story. It's just the lived reality of people in that setting. And I guess what I'm getting at here is that we're still at a moment where the cultural products that are supposed to be reflecting back our world are not like Parasite. They're reflecting back a world that basically doesn't much exist anymore.
Exactly. That's correct. This is actually a very good point by David, which is like, not only do our cultural products don't reflect reality, they're just what I like to call my least favorite word in the world, which is escapism. Which is basically, if somebody says they like escapism, I have a hard time thinking they're not a fucking dumbass, like in a really fundamental way. And the reason why is, what do they say when they mean escapism? Escapism is basically the idea that you're playing a piece of or engaging with a piece of content and you lose your sense of the world that you inhabit in your day-to-day life, and you fully inhabit. The verisimilitude of the setting is so high that you lose yourself in it, right? You forget who you are, you forget your troubles, and you escape into this content. You escape into this world that's been created. And like, I like verisimilitude. I love settings and stories that draw me in. But I don't consume that content in order to forget my life. I can't imagine a more pathetic thing than that. That's like legitimately the most pathetic thing I've ever heard. Like when you're so sad about your pathetic existence, you're like, I want to forget everything and just play and watch this like baby game. You know, art should be about challenging you, educating you, yes, entertaining you. There's nothing wrong with being entertained. There's nothing wrong with verisimilitude. There's nothing wrong with losing yourself in a story. The idea that, oh, I just want games to not have any politics and to represent some idealized version of my fantasies. Like you're fucking 12 is what is killing art. I'm sorry, Mike. I love escapism. I don't think you understand the ideological implications of what that means, which is why I just explained it. I hate one of the things that I really, really hate, and this is a major flaw in just like myself, I'll say, is the idea that people can't really engage with what you're saying because of their relationship with language. So a lot of people don't understand what language actually is, what words actually are. They're doing a very, very, very good imitation of using the language, but they don't really understand what language is. They don't really understand what the purpose of it is. And so, and you could tell this is true with the way people approach words. So if you approach words as social games where you could kind of shift between definitions and a way to obscure your meaning, the way that you kind of adopt words as totems of ideology, or you identify with a word as opposed to its ideas and surrounding concepts. This is the purpose of language. Language is not, it's not supposed to be about going like, I like escapism. What the fuck are you talking about, man? You need to be using words to communicate ideas and concepts in your brain and making sure that they're received into my brain as closely to what exists inside of your head, right? So few people actually use language in that way. People use language to manipulate others, not communicate with others. And they enter conversations where people are trying to communicate with each other with the purpose of manipulating each other socially, right? And that is very fucking annoying. But it's a feature of the fact that language is an imperfect tool. It really is a very imperfect tool. And it is, you know, in philosophy, that's why there's formal logic, right? Because like you have formal logic and you communicate using symbols, right? And so you have like modus ponens, and you have like, you know, different forms of logical, you know, deductions and inductions you can make. You basically turn things into math, right? The purpose of doing that is so that you could focus on the logical validity of an argument, right? Away from the social manipulation game that's being played, right? And 99 times out of 100, when you're trying to communicate something for the purpose of like putting an idea or a concept into another person's mind without manipulation and being accurate, people are going to jump in trying to confuse people with things like the fallacy of equivocation and other ways of using it as a social manipulation game. This is a very, very, very fundamental problem that we face, is that most people are not really aware of what I'm talking about. And so they get manipulated very easily. Like somebody, you know, that chatter who I like said to me, sorry, Mike, I like escapism, because it's not because they understand what I'm saying, right? They don't understand what I'm saying. Actually, what's happened is they've adopted escapism as some sort of totem of their identity. I don't know if somebody said escapism to them or something happened 10 years ago where they're like, oh, I like escapism. And they misunderstand what the fuck I'm even saying. And so they have this word, escapism, that they have now latched onto. So I've attacked escapism, and they're not listening to me because I said the word escapism. They're attaching to what they have in their mind escapism represents versus what I actually fucking said. And it is like, this is the moment where you'll kind of hear me go, we have a problem here. You're not using language right. This is, and I understand how this sounds like I'm being very condescending, but the thing is, nobody teaches you this shit until you're like very deep into a philosophy degree in undergrad. You're not understanding how to think. Like, it's pretty crazy that no one talks about how language works and how what logic is until you're very deep into like an undergrad or graduate school level education. It's almost like they want you to be stupid. I think because I am autistic, I didn't understand at all what you meant. What is killing art? Basically, I was talking about the ideological content of concepts such as escapism and the kind of like Treatlerite, the philosophy of Treatlerism. You know, a Treatlerite is like somebody who says like, oh, I just want escapism in my slop, right? I just want to, and what they really said, what they're really looking for is a fascistic art of nostalgia. And it's not just nostalgia in the art itself, meaning like the art is nostalgic for something they watched in the past. They're nostalgic for a feeling they had watching art when they were innocent. All right. They don't want the art necessarily to be the same, but they're nostalgic to the feeling they had when they were a child watching art. Do you get what I mean? It's like, have you ever met a 40-year-old man who's a Star Wars super fan? And you talk to them about their interest of Star Wars. And when they talk about their interest of Star Wars, it harkens back to when they watched it on a grainy VHS tape or whatever at 8 years old and how they felt as an 8-year-old. And they're not nostalgic for the movie itself. They're nostalgic to the feeling of watching the movie when they were 8. Do you get what I mean? It's like a heroin addict chasing the dragon. And that is what I'm condemning. I'm not condemning verisimilitude. I'm not condemning losing yourself in a creative work. I've done that. I have read 1,000-page novels in a day. I've woken up when I was younger. I would wake up on a Sunday morning. I would grab a 1,000-page novel and I would read it for 16 hours straight until it was done. Okay, like I get it. I am fucking weird. I did shit like that. But the reality is so I'm not condemning the idea of occupying a space and just being so immersed in something that you kind of, you know, your cares and your concerns and things can be left behind. What I'm talking about is a desire to impose a straitjacket on art to prevent it from treating you like an adult. It's why so many adults are obsessed with young adult literature. Why do so many adults talk about Harry Potter? It's because they're nostalgic to when they read Harry Potter as a child. They're nostalgic to the innocence of reading Harry Potter. They're nostalgic to how they felt as a kid, not the content itself. So they're going through this whole motion of, you know, I'm Gryffindor or whatever the fuck, because it allows themselves to put themselves mentally into the position of adolescence. In a position of being free from anxiety and responsibility, because they're an adult and they don't know what to do, right? They don't know how to tranquilize their anxiety. They are atomized individuals who are stressed. They don't understand how to interface with the world. They don't even have optimism. So they get nostalgic for this childlike shit because it puts them into the mental position of an innocent. And that tranquilizes their anxiety, that tranquilizes their fear, it tranquilizes the atomization, it provides them a feeling of being loved and supported. All of these things that as an adult in a capitalist, neoliberal capitalist hell, they don't have anymore. That's why we have so much arrested development. That's why we have so much nostalgia for childlike shit. And our consumption is taught to be the only form of personal expression that is valid. So true. That's such a great point as well. So playing Cyberpunk a little too much is okay, is what I'm hearing. It's not about the consumption of the content. It is the political ideology you construct in order to adopt this nostalgic mindset of innocence that you're looking for. Oh, don't show me that's why they say, don't show me the woke in games. What is happening? What are conservatives saying when they say, like, don't show me the woke, right? What they're really saying is they don't want to have an adult conversation with themes for adults because they're not mentally equipped to take in these perspectives. They want to adopt that statement of innocence, of that position of innocence, of innocent consumption. And when you bring in the non-binary character, it reminds them that they're a 45-year-old man playing a video game alone in a room, because they're not allowed to adopt that childlike consumption. Purely just people over 30 who don't understand the 50th Assassin's Creed isn't going to feel as good as the first one when they were 11. Well, also, it's not as good in a lot of objective means. They want to go back to the time when video games were made for the misogynistic age they grew up playing them. No, that gives them too much credit. That gives them too much credit. Okay? I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Why were all these anti-woke gamers jerking off over that anime game? The reason why is because only in a situation where women are fully objectifive can they enter into that nostalgic, childlike innocence. It's like, I don't know how to put this without it's just a very creepy. They're very creepy. Okay, so that's the only way to describe it. But basically, it's like being nostalgic for what it was like when you first discovered that you liked the opposite sex, or you felt. Okay, that's not what I mean. It's nostalgic for the feeling of sexual awakening, right? Which is very pedophilic. I will say this. Like having nostalgia for when you first got your sexual awakening. So they want to have content be so stripped down and misogynistic so that they can enter the brain space of a 12-year-old boy. That's what it is about. It's not about, it's not even necessarily about misogyny and imposing misogyny. It's about the fact that they're socially and emotionally stunted, and they're throwing away adulthood for a misogynistic adolescence of consumption. They're rejecting the idea of a mature sexual relationship with a woman, which is spiritually, physically, and emotionally validating, because in their own minds, they're not capable of it. The only way they can feel the sexual drive, like somebody like Tectone, the only way that someone like Tectone can feel sexually attracted to a woman is if he adopts this nostalgic feeling of being an adolescent discovering his dad's Playboy underneath the bed. All right, like that's because he himself knows he's not capable of having a sexual relationship with an equal. He's not emotionally mature to deal with the needs of someone. He's not ready for the expectation that he knows how to pleasure a woman, right? Like Tectone can't pleasure a woman. All right, like he can't bring a woman to orgasm. And because he has that feeling of inferiority, he needs his women to be objects that are suppressed and subordinated so that he can ignore their needs as irrelevant. And he dresses that up as some sort of empowerment, or he dresses that up as some sort of control. But in reality, it's the ultimate concession that he can't do the job. He can't find the clit. That's it. And he doesn't want to have an adult sexual relationship with another adult equal because he knows that if he was judged in that manner, he would fail to measure up. That's what these people are nostalgic for. That's what these people want. They want the freedom from consequence, the freedom from judgment, the freedom from evaluation to appear. They want control as a smokescreen for their own inadequacy. But how do you know about him, though? It seems very personal. I can't say anything more because I've already said too much. Let's keep going.
That's, I think, because there's a fear of being too on the nose. There's a fear of being, oh, you're being a doomer. There's a fear of reminding people of the reality in front of us. And my view is, even though, look, when I watch sitcoms and whatever, I don't want, doomerism, not doomerism, but I don't want, things that remind me of sad situations shoved in my face. But I also do want a reflection of reality.
Right.
And I this dissonance between what is portrayed as our world and what actually is our world is fundamentally a problem if what we need to be doing right now is to be out of the denial stage and into the acceptance and mitigation and protection and prevention stage. That if the central problem, if one of the central short-term problems is that we need to harden our cities, we need to change our zoning laws, we need to strengthen all the infrastructure, knowing that there is this incoming crisis, even if we do the best climate policies possible to reduce the long-term effects of that crisis, that short-term, we've got some big problems. If that is the fundamental short-term challenge right now, then pretending that that world doesn't exist hurts our ability to get the political will to actually do what we need to do, not just right now. We need to have done it yesterday. So we need to do it immediately.
Well, I guess, I mean, what makes this so, I think, interesting also is there's that side of it, right? But what about the other side of it, which is the role of Obama and the Obama bros in this disaster that we're currently experiencing?
Well, look.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I mean, this is a sad story. The Obama administration did not take seriously at the level it needed to be taken seriously the climate crisis. And to be clear, obviously, neither did the Bush administration. Right. I mean, two oil guys running climate policy, right? So, but I think there's this clip that's online that you can find. It was actually in 2018, which actually makes it so much worse. It's so much worse that it was 2018 because it's worse because it's so recent. This is it's one thing to look back in the early 2000s. I worked in Montana politics. I worked in, right. I mean, I wasn't 100% right. I've written a couple things way back 25 years ago about, different ideas and, can we have an all of the above energy policy? That was 25 years ago. Right. I mean,
I don't think an all of the above energy policy is bad unless you're including fossil fuels, in which case you're dumb as fuck. Oh, by the way, guys, as far as GoFundMes go, GoFundMes are rampant with scams and other problems. Okay, I don't believe in just allowing people to spam GoFundMes in my chats or in my Discords without having them be a vetted and reliable fucking place to give money. Why do I say that? Because it's very easy to write a sob story and grift and steal, and there's no accountability. I'm not really a big fan of GoFundMe, period. In any way, so if you post that kind of shit, it's very unlikely to be received well and very likely for you to get permabanned. Like, I created an account 3 minutes ago and then I find somebody who's talking about LA wildfires and I spam a GoFundMe. I'm going to upgrade that to a perma. It's like, no, that's scammer behavior.
You could argue there was some confusion. How do we move forward? I mean, 2018, there's no confusion.
Okay, and by the way, I want to say this so everybody's not confused. I want you to understand something, chat. And this is very, 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 very important for you to understand. Just because you understand that scams exist, just because you understand that some people begging for money are actually just grifters and thieves, doesn't mean you're a bad person. Being on the left doesn't mean you need to be a naive dipshit. Or that you need to let people take advantage of you. If somebody tries to take advantage of me, I want to be straight up honest. I use extreme and unnecessarily overreactive counterforce. Like, if somebody tried to hurt me in the real world, you're gonna see me on the news for killing that person. Like that is like in self-defense, not like I would never attack someone. Like I'm just saying, like, it is what it is. If somebody breaks into my house, it is what it is. I'm not going to be like, I should have retreated. Like, this is just my most conservative, reactionary Mike take. Just because I have compassion for people and I believe in rehabilitation and I believe in solidarity and I believe in redistributionism and I believe in all the positive lefty things, doesn't mean you get to fuck with me. And I'm just going to be like, oh, I guess I should have let that happen. That's not what's going to happen. If somebody comes up out of the street and tries to scam me, I'm not going to be like, well, I guess you seem like a poor person. I will help you. No, this is just, I believe in a high trust society with pro-social behavior. If somebody does antisocial shit to me, I'm not going to say that I'm going to like hurt people for it. I'm not fantasizing about that. I'm just saying that is not a society you should be relishing. Okay. That is not acceptable. All right. People should be engaged in pro-social behavior. And we all have to accept a certain amount of nonconformity, and that's normal, and that's called freedom. But when it crosses the line into antisocial behavior, those people need help.
Right? 2018, we're like, inconvenient truth has been made. There should be a full...
I trust society is Twitter speak for an ethno state? Absolutely not. That's absolutely not the correct. That's not the case. That's absolutely not the case. You're just confused about white nationalists that have abused certain concepts for their own gain. All right, let's finish this video.
Full awareness of the fact that we have a much bigger emergency on our hands than many people understood, right? In 2018, Barack Obama was in Houston and bragged to it doesn't sound like I'm making this up. I want people to go look at it. Barack Obama was in front of an audience in Houston and said essentially the record production of oil and gas happened under my term. That was me, people.
You know, that whole suddenly America's like the biggest oil producer and the biggest gas. That was me, people. I just want you to.
And he was bragging about this. And that wasn't an anomaly.
It wasn't a mea culpa. It was
it was bragging. Yeah. And the thing is that you can go look back during his administration when he did a campaign event in Oklahoma bragging about this. So this wasn't out of character. And we could go through the policies that Obama did that were terrible for the climate. And to be clear, signing the Paris Accords, that it wasn't all 100% bad. That there were some good things, certainly better than some things better than the Bush administration for sure. So let's be painting a somewhat nuanced picture. But I think the point is the Obama years, when he had a giant mandate for change, when he had massive congressional majorities, and they backed off, for instance, cap and trade. Again, not perfect, but they had a chance to do it. The Obama administration backed off it. The Democrats in Congress also helped kill it. The point is that the Obama administration, the people around Barack Obama, the people who have used their Obama administration experience to then build a media empire to punch essentially the left sort of generally and marginalize the left to a liberal audience. Those people all have significant culpability in the climate crisis we're now living through. The Pod Save America guys should be apologizing to the world for what they participated in the Obama administration that helped create the crisis we're now in, at the admission of Barack Obama himself in 2018. And the reason to remind folks of this is, in my view, if people are not held accountable, and I don't mean like throwing them in jail or whatever, I'm saying if we're not aware of what decisions were made and who participated in creating the reality that we're in right now, it creates the conditions for continuing to repeat that behavior. We need to hold accountable and understand what brought us to this situation. And the people who participated in that should be saying, hey, we got it wrong. We understand that what we participated in was wrong and bad. And having learned that, we need to do new things, as opposed to pretending none of that happened. Now, again, we live in a goldfish culture where we forget our world every 15 minutes. I happen to have a photographic memory for things that I detest and am sad about. It's sort of a curse. But I guess the point is, we can't allow that to happen again.
This is why I wanted to watch the video. This is the very, 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 very important point. It isn't that I'm right and that matters in and of itself. It's that in the future, we're not listening to liberal pundits. We're not listening to Matty Iglesias. We're not listening to David Pakman. We're not listening to Editor Mentum. We're not listening to liberals, okay? We are not going to compromise and say, oh, yes, Andy Bashir, and oh, yes, Gretchen Whitmer, my queen. We are going to actually get somebody like Sean Fain, who actually comes from a left-wing mass base, all right? We need the people that were wrong about 2024, the people that were wrong about 2016, they need to be removed from positions of authority. Don't let them say, oh, I was sorry. Here, now, next election, they're going to be like, ooh, I don't know, Sean Fain, he's a little radical. Maybe we should do Pete Buttigieg. He was really good as transportation secretary. There you go, chat. I just previewed you a 2027 Edigermentum post, okay? Like, this is the type of shit we need to push back against. They were wrong about Iraq. They were wrong about mass incarceration. They were wrong about Black Lives Matter. They were wrong about Afghanistan. They were wrong about the Green New Deal. They were wrong about the 2024 election. They were wrong. You need to say no more of these people.
And I think that what we need to be doing is saying, here are the mistakes that we made. We must never make these mistakes again, or the Los Angeles fires are not a turning point. They end up being the first of a gateway into that being a new reality. And I don't think anybody wants that.
And this is what it's really all about, chat. And I like Katie. So even if we disagree on a couple things. The problem with walls greater than Shapiro isn't that home state advantage is super important. It's that surrendering to progressives is bad. Matty Iglesias got exactly the campaign he wanted. It wasn't like his ideas. It was his ideas. And I got to tell you, chat, shit is popping off on
fascist.
If you're on TikTok, it's very important that you understand that this is the way it's going to be going.
Fascist countries ban apps. Fascist countries ban websites. Fascist countries ban apps and websites under the guise of threats to national security, when every other country knows it's about suppressing the free speech of its citizens. If the government believes that a single app could, quote from the hearing on the 10th, skew the perspective of American citizens to be anti-American, maybe the real problem is that American citizens are already in such a state of political unrest and unhappiness that our government is scared a single foreign influence could tip the scale and have it all be over. Don't you think that by taking away the, and I quote, key communications channel of Americans, it's gonna make those 170 million Americans a little more anti-American? Maybe Congress knows and understands that. Maybe the government knows that the backlash it will receive from banning TikTok does not outweigh the threats that come with its existence. Not in a matter of national security, but in a matter of being the most popular news and media outlet that the government cannot control, like American-owned broadcasting networks and publications. Maybe, if this was actually a national security concern, the government would be banning all Chinese-developed apps, like Shein and Temu, that collect the exact same amount of data as TikTok. Because maybe it knows TikTok is something special. You can't politically organize on Temu. If TikTok goes dark, the government deliberately and knowingly took away your free speech. Do not accept national security for an answer, ever.
And there you have it. We were approved of 400 acres of forest being cleared to install solar panels. Kind of seems backwards to me. Maybe you can help me understand. I mean, solar energy is required in order. I honest to God don't care about that, if I'm being quite honest with you. Like, that doesn't sound bad to me. I mean, it is what it is. I don't think, if you were talking about reasons to hate Gretchen, or clearing a forest to build solar panel arrays is not going to be in the top 100 things. Like, honestly.
To be respected as a woman, I am forced to cover up my absolute dump truck badonkadonk.
You can also know that I'm in a battle of spite with God. This is very important to aerodynamics, because if you weigh too little and you jump too high, you might end up on the moon.
That's the type of content creator who hates Joe Biden and the Democrats now. Isn't Hasan pro-consumerism? Hasan isn't pro-consumerism. That's not true at all. That's just not true at all. Hasan exists within American society and he consumes a couple of things. That's not being pro-consumerism. Consumerism is basically the idea where hedonism is the only goal in life, and that you should consume as much as you can, as much as you want, no matter what the consequences are. That is not Hasan's belief, even in a fucking bad faith interpretation of what he said. What we believe in, and what I believe in particular, is called abundance socialism. I don't want to use socialism to impose a gray austerity on you. I want to use redistribution and collective and democratic control of resources to give prosperity to all. Hasan is pro banning anyone who disagrees with him. I'm in favor of banning people that are bad faith, whiny little bitches. You could disagree with me, but eventually what happens with these disagreements is I've been reading and thinking about conservative arguments for 20 fucking years. I have not received a single novel argument of any validity in my chat in 6 years of streaming politics from a conservative. Not one. What do you think that says? At a certain point, we've out debated, or we have dealt with every conservative argument, every single one. So at a certain point, you're just repeating yourself to something that's already been said. All right, chat. I wanted to react to a really cool thing that I didn't get a chance to see the first time, which was Hasan with the firefighters. I actually didn't see it.
It probably feels.
So let's watch this from Hasanabi Productions, which is the local Fox 11. Hasanabi on Fox News to talk about LA wildfires and yeah, it was about wildfires. That's fine. And then we will watch some of the interview, I think. LA firefighters were too busy creating ads for racial gender diversity and blaming people for needing to be saved from a fire. Okay, that I think is your attempt at being a conservative making a novel argument. That's your attempt to make a novel argument. They cut the funding for the LA firefighters. America is buying 150 multi-billion-dollar strategic heavy bombers, and we only have 2 water scoopers borrowed from Canada to fight wildfires. They cut firefighting budgets to pour another $150 million into the LAPD, and you think it's DEI? I mean, I understand being dickless. I get it. I understand it. I understand that you feel very emasculated that there are women that are firefighters. There might even be unqualified women that are firefighters. This may even be true. I want to give you a little hint. There's also unqualified men who are firefighters, right? That's just the way of any organization. You're going to have people that are in the bottom tier. But if you're talking about why large swaths of Los Angeles, California are burning down, and you think it's because they hired a couple lesbian firefighters, I mean, you don't even believe it. You don't even believe it. You're just filling the air with bullshit because you don't want to reflect on the reality that this is the hottest year since we started keeping track. And it's because of climate change. And that this is one of the driest winters LA has ever had because of climate change. And because of austerity and conservatives and neoliberal conservatives in the Democratic Party, they've cut back our services and poured it all into the military industrial complex to do another Cold War with China, so that our corporations and our hyper elite on Wall Street can make money while regular people get fucked. That's what you're fighting to defend. That's what you're fighting to conserve. You look at America today and you say, I want to conserve that. I want to give the people who fucked it up even more power. That's what your ideology believes. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders wanted to hire, and this is for you conservatives in the chat, Bernie Sanders wanted to hire $16 billion worth of strapping, muscly, oiled up federal firefighters in the Green New Deal. He wanted the sexiest, muscly bodybuilder firefighters to be paid 6 figures to put these fires out. And you could have jacked off to them in private and nobody would have judged you. They would be so masculine and so strong. That's what I hear. That's what I hear when a conservative comes in and goes like, oh, DEI ruined it. It's because they're like, there's not enough oily firefighter calendars. I'm tired of seeing women in these firefighter calendars. I want them to just be oiled up men. Is that so much to ask? You can't even be closeted gay in here anymore. I know. You want to buy the oiled up firefighter calendar and say, listen, it was for a good cause, honey. I needed to support our firefighters. I had to buy the hunk calendar, honey. It was to support our firefighters. I understand. That's what this is about. You're gay. Once you recognize that that's okay, there's nothing wrong with being gay. You can move on beyond, you know, kind of the blatant, vulgar misogyny. You can move the fuck on and just love men. You can just love men without making it about hating women, right? Like, just love men. Don't be so fucking negative. He's not even American. Oh, God.
Okay, we interrupt this broadcast because I'm going to be on with Alex Michelson of Fox 11, and I'm briefly interrupting the
Alex Michelson as a secret lefty is very funny. Like, this guy is a secret lefty. You love to see it. Or at least he's like, at least got a functioning brain and understands clout, which is very rare. You're real cool defending the chatter saying LA fires is because of queer firefighters. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, nobody even believes that. Conservatives don't even believe that. Like, you don't believe it. I don't believe it. Why do we have to waste time pretending like you believe that? Guys, like, 10% of the firefighters are women. That's what burned down the city. What? Get the fuck out of here. Like, come on.
broadcast.
Nobody's saying that. He literally just said it in the chat. Somebody literally just said it in the chat. All right, here we go, chat. I want to say this. This person at this firefighter thing absolutely sucks. And this is fucking stupid. I would have just go ahead and say that straight off the bat. But let's watch what this guy's talking. This is what this guy's talking about.
Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire. Which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Just 1% of women in law enforcement service, lieutenants, captains, or higher.
I was the first African-American female promoted to the rank of battalion chief. With each promotion, more eyes come on you, more scrutiny. They want to know, does she know what she's doing? Does she keep her crew safe?
Some people walk in with the respect already. As a female, you have to know your stuff. You're not given the opportunity not to know it.
When it comes to women and being a police officer, you're capable of doing it. It's not a man's world. It's not a man's field. I'm here. I'm a woman, and I'm doing it.
Okay. I want to straight up say this. The idea of saying, oh, you could carry my husband out, and you say, oh, he got himself in the wrong place if he needs me to carry him out. That is, I can't believe they published this. Like, what the fuck are you talking? Like, what are you doing? Like, what the fuck are you doing? This is absolutely the dumbest ass motherfucking shit I've ever seen in my goddamn life. No wonder it's being promoted. She's a dumb piece of shit. I mean, this is totally unacceptable. And if you're anybody who sees this and go, well, no, that's funny, haha. No, it's not, actually. This is incredibly incompetent, dumbass bullshit. And it really shows the entitlement of a certain type of California bureaucrat, quite frankly. Less so than, you know, them being a queer or whatever. Like, that is absolutely ridiculous. Her response should have been, every single firefighter is up to the standards that we believe is necessary in order to effectively fight fires. And we will rescue your husband just the same as we would rescue your child, with the same professionalism. It isn't to go like, if you were a victim, it's your own fault. Like, that is more of a corruption of the professionalism of the fucking group. And that is completely insane and totally unacceptable in every way. There's really no way. You don't have to cover up for that. You don't have to pretend that that's okay just because a queer person says it. That's liberalism and nonsense.
Join in and talk to him.
That's literally not what she was saying. What she was saying was, and I don't know if the clip is taken out of context, which would totally make sense, but she said, you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire. And she said, well, then your husband, well, basically to blame the victim, which is an insane point of view. Sometimes people, yes, get caught in fires.
About my experiences interviewing the incarcerated wildfire firefighters. Okay.
Hey,
Gotcha.
Hasan, how you doing, man? This is KTTV TOC. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're live, by the way, on my end as well, just so you know.
19 homes from our congregation.
Okay, just I'll let him know.
Down.
This married couple took a final.
My friend was a fire chief in the Navy, and she's a short lady. That's exactly my point. You can be a successful female firefighter, but if you're going public-facing shit as a representative of a discriminated minority, and you go up there and go, "Oh, well, if I had to carry your husband, I couldn't, and it's his fault for dying in the fire." That is idiotic to the maximum possible fucking extreme. We're also talking about an American, so the average male firefighter probably can't lift them either. Probably, but if a male firefighter said the same exact thing, I'd be saying the same thing. It's dumb as fuck.
Picture as they fled their neighborhood turned inferno on Tuesday.
Up next, we're going to talk about the incarcerated firefighters and their extraordinary work on the front lines. Hasan Piker, one of the biggest names online, went out, spent some time with them. He joins us live next.
Stand by, we're at a break, and then it's you.
All right, stand by, and then it's you.
Hear you. You can hear me.
Yes, perfect.
Hello to your crowd, right?
Yeah. You got 30,000
right
people
now?
watching you right now. They can see you.
Very nice. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. We got a big crowd watching on TV coming out of the football game, too. Well, we'll start off by just sort of talking about what you saw out there, and then what are the key lessons that we can learn from it going forward. So we're going to be live on the Fox 11 in probably a minute or two. And we appreciate you reaching out, and thanks for the work you do. I mean, it's important, and I think it's good to highlight this.
Yeah. No.
Look at how the resources are wasted in Los Angeles. This is how the resources are wasted in Los Angeles, by the way. Look at the amount of just worthless, like, look how much money they spend on police cruisers instead of, like, I don't know, wildfire fighting equipment or mechanics to, like, repair and keep engines up. Collection of police officers is called a Candy Crush.
No, thank you. You guys have been doing tremendous coverage as well. I've been tuning in just to figure out what's going on in my backyard. So.
And are you okay? You're okay? Everybody's safe?
Yeah, we had a brief scare with the Runyon Canyon fires where my best friend, who also streams on Twitch, that was like directly on top of them. So they had to evacuate by foot because there was so much chaos and traffic. So I had to go pick them up in my car. And they stayed with me overnight, but then they released the evacuation order, so they're back.
Yeah, firefighters did an amazing job on that one. They basically put that thing out in like an hour. That's awesome. All right, well, we will see you on TV real shortly. Thanks again, Hasan.
All right, yeah, thank you for having me.
If you've been watching our coverage, you've seen some of the firefighters that are out on the front lines are actually inmate crews, incarcerated firefighters. Hasan Piker is one of the top streamers on Twitch. He's actually streaming live on Twitch right now. Hello to his streaming audience. He is also the firefighters. Learned a lot from talking to them. Hasan, good to see you. Welcome.
It's good to be back, Alex. Thank you for having me.
Talk to us about what you learned meeting these firefighters.
So approximately at any given moment when there's wildfires happening in wildfire season in California, there's around 30% of the people fighting those wildfires are incarcerated firefighters. The California State and Cal Fire have a collaborative program with the Forest Service where they basically train some of the incarcerated at what they call camps, conservation camps, where they learn how to clear brush and reach areas that bulldozers can't get to by foot. It's a lot of trekking. They're going and putting their lives on the line basically to ensure that Californians are safe during wildfire season. I met a now friend, Scott Budnick, who is a Hollywood producer. He produced Hangover, Project X, and Old School, and many other projects. He actually started this thing called the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. And I found out that he was actually working with the governor and also simultaneously expanding these programs. And I got to meet some of the youth offenders. This is a camp pilot program that they just started in 2023. where they, for the first time ever, are bringing in youth offenders, young offenders that have been incarcerated under the age of 25 or committed crimes under the age of 25 that are now part of this training program as well. And I mean, it was an incredible experience overall. And one of the things that I was kind of shocked by is the fact that these guys just kept asking, like, why do you care about us? Why are you here? Like, they were shocked at this level of attention there, because they don't have access to the news as readily available. So they're not exactly aware that, like, there are a lot of people in the civilian population that's talking about these guys right now. And one of the things that struck me was the fact that they understand that these are very dangerous conditions that they're putting themselves into, but they really are appreciative of the fact that they get a semblance of dignity and a way to help with these communities that they're a part of. So it was truly a tremendous experience overall, and very eye-opening.
And we talk about people going behind bars. Most people that go behind bars are eventually released. And so you want there to be a rehabilitation process so that they come out potentially even stronger than when they came in. And I know for you, you were really struck by the sense of hope that these guys felt.
Yeah. So it's not a secret that the county jail structure and the prison structure in the state is pretty bad overall. Like, the conditions are pretty bad overall. There's a lot of violence. There are major problems. And from what I understand, aside from the fact that being able to volunteer for these programs allow these inmates to shave off some of their very long sentences, it also gives them an opportunity to train and potentially an opportunity for gainful employment after they're out, after they're released. And there have been a lot of initiatives to make sure that this is as ethical of a process as possible, especially in recent years. In the past, a lot of these firefighters, a lot of the incarcerated firefighters could only get seasonal employment, and they could never get municipal employment in the Los Angeles Fire Department because if you have a felony, you're not able to get an EMT certification. And if you can't get an EMT certification, you can't become a municipal firefighter. But nowadays...
This is what I don't understand. This is what I'm saying. It's like, we should be building climate change and disaster response corps. That, there's a wildfire. You know what should happen? There should be an automatic federal response. These guys should be flying in with all of the equipment, all the know-how, all the expertise, and immediately get deployed. Can you imagine if we had 50 aircraft that were just carpet bombing these fires with water drops instead of 2 measly water scoopers from Canada? Can you imagine if we had 10,000 firefighters ready to go, ready to deploy? If we actually had the federal forest conservation and we had regulations to manage this stuff, and instead we have 250 stealth bombers that are, best case scenario, never going to be used ever. It's pathetic.
They're working on expunging some of the records as well for demonstrating good behavior and service for the community. And I think it's wonderful, because one of the things that I heard from virtually every single person there was the anxieties that they had as far as what they will do once they are released. What they like, how will they find an opportunity to reintegrate into society? This is something that obviously I read extensively on. There's a lot of data available on this, but it was truly interesting just seeing it in person, where these guys were also talking about the anxieties that they have about like wanting to become productive members of society. And this program, I think, is fantastic. And there are still some issues, of course, specifically around their wages. I think since the 80s, they had not seen any meaningful wage increases. I believe they were getting around $5 a day. And they're doing basically the same thing that everyone else in CAL FIRE is doing as well. One of the hardest jobs on the line, basically. And now that wage has been increased to $24 a day, and I feel like It's a wonderful opportunity for reintegration. It's a wonderful opportunity for rehabilitation, and the conditions of the camps are significantly better overall than the conditions of the prisons. But having said that, I think that there's still room to grow. This program could grow as well, and hopefully their wages can be fair in terms of adequate compensation, because utilizing incarcerated firefighters as a way to displace the existing non-incarcerated firefighters is also, lowering the wages of non-incarcerated firefighters.
Hasan, thank you so much for bringing this issue to our attention. We really appreciate it and appreciate the work you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, we got some breaking news now, Susan.
Camp clear from Fox 11.
Northern California cost
All right, thank you so much. Have
What a great yapper.
And that fire was considered the state's.
There it is. I try to slam as much information as possible into the 3 minutes that I had there. No, Alex is the man. He would never cut me off. It's not like that. He wanted to offer more coverage to the issue. Was there anything you didn't get a chance to squeeze in? Did you accidentally say concentration camp? No, conservation camp is what I said. ChatGPT couldn't have done it better. Thank you. My conservative dad is watching Hasan Piker. Let's go. That's so funny. That's amazing. This is how we do it, Chad. This is how we infiltrate the conservative households. Oh my God, I just realized we got on local Fox affiliate a Cuban flag and a Palestinian flag. Are they doing any kind of holistic coverage on the incarcerated firefighters? Like, is there any kind of opinion slant from this on Fox? My dad couldn't see you because he told me to set parental control so we couldn't watch Fox earlier. I didn't say Fox 11. Y'all, why are they playing Hasan Piker on these big ass TV screens at the restaurant like I'm invested? That's funny. All your videos off TikTok before we lose it? What do you mean? All of my videos on TikTok are videos that come from the stream. There's like very little original content on TikTok. Hasan's stepson, thank you for the 5 gifted. And Iffy, thank you for the 20 gifted subs. Why did they show this image law? Why does chat always have to play like this? Like, why do y'all got to play like this? Who was that nerd that Alex had you debate on TV back during COVID again? Oh, it was Michael Knowles. That's crazy that I'm literally live for 5 seconds at LAX, and the first thing I saw when I looked up was Hasan on the big screen. That's true. Everyone's currently tuned into local news. You forgot to turn off the filter on Zoom? No, dude, I look hot bald, by the way. Do you know the band Muna? The lead singer shared a clip from your stream yesterday on their story. I didn't see that. Yes, Elix is another Alex in the Hasanabi universe, in the extended Alex verse. What is this red flag warning? I was peacefully catching up to my local news to be in the know, and OMG, who is this? Red flag warning. At this point, eventually I will know every single person named Alex in the United States of America. Did you prepare talking points? I keep asking because as a regular public speaker, I like to see people just dome off so confidently. No, I did not have any talking points prepared ahead of time. Brother, you saw me. I do have the gift of yap, which is why I have the gift of yap, which can be dangerous at times because I get overconfident and don't prepare at all. And honest constructive criticism, in the future, you should talk more about the personal humanizing stories like the ones you shared with us earlier in the stream, just talking about the guys as people that they are and how you felt so safe being around them, etc. Yeah, I wanted to get information out about the program. I wanted to shout out Scott, and I wanted to shout out ARC, the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. And then I also wanted to talk about the program extensively and bring up wages in that limited time. So I didn't get to talk for longer.
Guys, have you seen the coverage of the Gaza and genocide by 60 Minutes and MSNBC that just dropped? That's what I was looking at. I was pondering whether it's like one of those things where 2 years of, you have this genocide going on. We were right there in the beginning. It was open. We were surfacing all the coverage of it, and the Democratic Party supported it to the hilt, deplatformed, tried to ruin the lives of people who spoke up for Palestine. I think the best thing for us to do is to just watch it.
There have been basically two kind of competing visions of America's role in the world, at least among the two major parties. There's an international, liberal international view, right? That human rights should matter, that there should be a uniform standard globally that applies to every nation, including us, the U.S., and our allies. A regime of international norms and, most importantly, international law, like real international law, that the U.S. could shape and strengthen. Now, to be clear, I wasn't born yesterday. I'm not completely naive. Yes, that standard is one that is very, very often only given lip service to while the U.S. pursues pure power politics. But it is a meaningful and important standard, as is the aspiration towards reaching it and the people that advocate holding it as a standard. So that's one vision. And then there's a kind of standard reactionary vision, right-wing vision, which is that might makes right. Universal norms are fictions that can never really constrain us. We're the greatest country on earth. And because we are the greatest nation, it's just definitionally impossible for us or our allies to be on the wrong side of international law, which doesn't exist. And that view is strong and has a very long tradition. You could say it might have peaked or reached its apogee in the Cold War under Henry Kissinger, who sold successive administrations on dirty wars and proxy wars, funding, training, and arming right-wing militaries to oppose left-wing governments or activists. He enabled deadly terror in Chile and Argentina and South Africa and Indonesia, where, to be clear, Kissinger's support for a right-wing dictator led to the genocide of 200,000 East Timorese people by a U.S.-equipped army, one of the great moral stains of U.S. foreign policy in the last 60 years. In El Salvador, where U.S.-backed forces fueled a civil war, murdered Catholic bishops, Catholic nuns, and social workers, an outrage that led the Carter administration to suspend military aid to the nation. And as the Cold War finally wound down, there was one lawmaker who made an indelible contribution to rolling back these abuses and attempting to set a standard for American behavior abroad and the behavior of our allies that we armed. That was Senator Pat Leahy, Democrat of Vermont, in 1997.
So-called Leahy Law expands our current law and seeks to ensure that United States assistance does not go to individuals who abuse human rights, to do everything possible to assure that in our efforts to support foreign security forces that we respect human rights, we also prevent those who abuse human rights from receiving our assistance.
Seems straightforward. Leahy Law barred the Pentagon and the Department of State from transferring U.S. arms to countries that we thought were committing human rights abuses. And that is what I keep thinking of as I process the news that on the way out the door, the Biden administration is going to transfer $8 billion more in weapons to Israel, including fighter jets and attack helicopters, bombs, warheads, and artillery shells. $8 billion in weaponry given over to an ally waging what I think can only be described as total war in Gaza that has, according to, I think, multiple independent experts and reporters and NGOs, been committing war crimes, and ethnic cleansing, according to a former Israeli defense minister, where Israeli soldiers say they have been ordered to target and kill innocents arbitrarily, including children, and that they have used Palestinians as human shields for their operations in Gaza. As whistleblowers and detainees say, the Israeli authorities regularly torture Palestinian prisoners. The UN says Israel is using starvation as a strategy in Gaza. Amnesty International says Israel is committing a genocide. Dozens of doctors, nurses, and paramedics who volunteered in Gaza and were there and saw up close told the New York Times they'd seen, as you see the images there in front of you, multiple children who were shot in the head or chest, bullets. And they even brought back the x-rays you're seeing right now to prove it, so people would believe that they had seen children with bullets lodged in their skulls. As Congresswoman Katie Porter pointed out in a House hearing last year, the U.S. ban on arms transfers to human rights abusers, the Leahy Law, has one big exception.
State Department says that aid should stop immediately if there's a problem. Does it?
It totally depends on the circumstances and situation.
Does it depend on the country that's getting the aid?
It also depends on the country receiving the aid, yes.
So what country does aid not stop immediately under Leahy?
I'd have to go back and look through my notes.
You don't know what country that is? It's only one in the entire world. Guess what? Except for Israel.
By the way, that's why she wasn't allowed to win the and by the way, that's why Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, and the entire Democratic Party elite did everything they could to keep her out of the Senate. She was effective as a left-wing communicator. She had good politics. She wasn't perfect. That's why they all coalesced around Shifty Shift, because he was the anti-Trump. And he was only anti-Trump for one reason, because Trump was attacking him. It wasn't like he was actually anti-Trump. And in fact, he's going to be one of Trump's biggest supporters in the Democratic Party now that the Republicans are in power. Shifty Shift.
Even now, former Senator Pat Leahy, who's no longer in the Senate, says Israel is getting a pass in violation of the spirit, if not the letter of the law, that he helped pass. Beginning in the early 2000s, I wrote to successive secretaries of state about the failure to apply the Leahy Law to Israel. The responses were either inconclusive or inaccurately claimed the law was being applied to Israel the same as to other countries, which the State Department continues to insist today. Leahy added the State Department's dismissive response not only beggars credulity, it also makes a mockery of the law. This is Pat Leahy, liberal senator, not a radical, right? Not a fringe voice in American politics. Someone who knows this issue, who spent decades working on this issue, and not just about Israel, about all kinds of American allies. And yet here we are. President Biden is going to hand a blank check for Israel over to the incoming Trump administration. I don't think it's coincidental that yesterday on Capitol Hill, the House overwhelmingly passed a bill to sanction officers of the International Criminal Court, to punish them for moving to charge top Israeli leaders, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, with war crimes. Keep in mind, the ICC also indicted leaders of Hamas for their war crimes, appropriately, and their holding of Israeli hostages, which continues to this very day. And 45 Democrats joined all Republicans to support this bill. We know which vision of American global engagement the Trump administration will carry out. But it isn't just Trump who this week is making an absolute mockery of every last lecture we deliver to the Russians or the Chinese or anyone else about respecting human rights and international law. It is President Joe Biden, too.
I mean, I want you to understand that the Russians and the Chinese are far more ethical in their wars than the United States is. The Russians are exercising far more distinguishment between civilians and military targets in the war in Ukraine than Israel is against the war is in the war on Gaza. This is a fact. This is a fact. And it's not a fact that I relish. I think that well, first of all, China doesn't do aggressive wars. They haven't had a war since they fought Vietnam. Russia is doing an illegal aggressive war into Ukraine. But there is about a tenth of as much civilian casualties in Ukraine than there is in Gaza. There have been horrifying war crimes that Russian military has committed that needs to be punished under international law, except for the fact that the United States of America is dismantling international law to protect Israel. If you care about Ukrainians, you need to be 100% opposed to the United States of America. These are facts. There's only been 9,824 civilian deaths in Ukraine in 3 years of war. 9,824. That's a lot of civilians who have been killed. That's horrible. There have been at least 45,000 people killed in Gaza. The vast majority of those people are women and children. Far, far more civilians have been killed in Gaza than have been killed in Ukraine. This is a fact. Now, why is that? Well, the answer is because civilians in Ukraine are allowed to leave the front lines. Civilians in Ukraine can flee to safer areas away from the front lines. The Russian and Ukrainian militaries are not boxing them in to an urban combat zone. The Lancet has estimated that over 200,000 people have been killed in Gaza at this point. That's far, 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 far more of a civilian toll than has taken place in Ukraine. This is a fact. So if you think Russia is an evil country that needs to be stopped at all costs, Israel and the United States are 10 times worse, at least. That's just the facts, Jack.
Leaving a disgraceful legacy, a liberal president doing untold damage to the liberal international order.
And that is the conclusion. There is no liberal international order. It has been exposed for what it is. The United States of America under Joe Biden has basically said this: international law does not apply to the United States of America and our allies. International law exists only to trick the gullible. We are the global hegemon, and so we will assert our domination through force. That is what the Joe Biden foreign policy is. It is a stripping off of the mask. It's a removing of the velvet glove. It is nothing but an iron fist and blood and violence and threat and coercion. That is the world that Joe Biden has created and handed the keys to Donald fucking Trump. That is the reality we live in. Children, women, death toll in Israel war on Gaza 6 times higher than the Russian-Ukraine war. This is an old article. This is from last February, dude. It's far more children have been killed. This is from last February. It's far more children that has been killed. This is far. This is from last year, but this is the point that is very, very clear. So how could you voluntarily live in a country you feel that way about? Okay, I want to give you a hypothetical. I want you to imagine that the country that you love has been hijacked by insane warmongers who are stealing all the money and using it to do evil in the world. And you have 2 choices. First choice is put your head in the sand and pretend it's not happening. That's you. Or you could build a platform of tens of thousands of people that you try to educate and inform and enlighten and empower so that they get involved in politics and they could go and talk to their friends and go talk to their family and fight to get this country out of the hands of these evil fucks and actually stop the crimes that are being committed. That's my goal. My goal is to seize this country back from the evil sons of bitches that are killing everybody and that are ruining our lives and put it in the hands of people that actually care about you and rebuild our civil society, rebuild a foreign policy that cares about humanity as a whole and not just what narrow advantage a few connected elites can get. You make it sound like this just happened, but this has been going on since Bush Sr. He thinks it started with Bush Sr. America has been interfering with the rest of the world. It's fucking inception, dude. And this is what it would look like if we actually built a left-wing coalition. Yesterday, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum delivered her 100-day address to a backed Zocalo. We will not return to the neoliberal model. We will not return to the regime of privileges and corruption. We say for the good of all, first the poor.
Se cumplen
I wish I had this translated.
Desde que dio inicio el segundo piso de la Cuarta Transformación. Visitamos las 32 entidades de la República. Recorrimos por tierra y aire 32.449 kilómetros y nos reunimos con las 32 entidades, con los 32 gobiernos estatales y la jefatura de gobierno para juntos definir los próximos proyectos estratégicos. ¿Por qué le llamamos segundo piso de la Cuarta Transformación? Porque los cimientos, la base...
She doesn't have bulletproof glass. Her bravery is part of her appeal. Her fearlessness is part of her appeal. Hiding behind bodyguards, hiding behind bulletproof glass, withdrawing and forming a fucking Praetorian cohort, separating herself from the people would be what a fearful oligarch would do, like Donald Trump.
Las puso el mejor presidente, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Y a nosotros nos toca consolidar, sumar y avanzar con el segundo piso, con la raíz bien firme y el corazón por delante. Nos critican algunos medios, la comentocracia. ¿Por qué no nos diferenciamos? ¿Por qué defendemos los programas de bienestar o las obras estratégicas? ¿Por qué hay continuidad en el proyecto? Pero si siempre lo dijimos, ¿cuál sorpresa? Por eso luchamos durante todos estos años. Para eso nos eligieron, para dar continuidad a la transformación de la vida pública de México iniciada en el 2018. Que se oiga bien, lejos y fuerte. No vamos a regresar al modelo neoliberal. No vamos a regresar al régimen de corrupción y de privilegios. No dejaremos que regrese la decadencia del pasado, donde se gobernaba para unos cuantos. Vamos a seguir con el humanismo mexicano y con la máxima de por el bien de todos, primero los pobres.
What a queen. All right, chat.
Now to the war in Gaza, where...
Look at this, chat. Look what 60 Minutes just put out.
This is the scene filmed in May by CBS News in Gaza.
It is true, resource-rich nation is designed to be poor, unstable, and undeveloped through regime change, crippled with IMF loans to make resource extraction cheap. Correct. Very correct.
Story will continue in a moment.
This is the scene filmed in May by CBS News in Gaza.
Filmed in May. It's fucking January of the next year. Filmed in May. I remember you and Hasan saying the second Biden was out, the media would start being more critical of Gaza. That was my hopium. I don't know if you guys remember, before the election, I was like, actually what will happen is if Donald Trump gets in there, there's more, it's a higher likelihood that suddenly liberals and liberal Zionists will figure out, oh shit, these Israel's doing bad shit, and start covering it more skeptically. And here we are. He's not even in office yet. And 60 Minutes is publishing a big fucking expose, which, by the way, in order to get this video, I had to do the 18-year-old plus, which means it's suppressed by the algorithm. Age-restricted video. Age-restricted video means suppressed by algorithm. What do I think of Chris Cuomo? I think that every single person in the Cuomo family should be in prison the rest of their lives. That's what I think. Why? Do you work for him? Does he want to interview me? I'd love to tell him that to his face. Wait, the State Department guy was seeing, a State Department lady was seeing social media posts about what America was doing, and she was radicalized against America. Do you now know why they're wanting to ban TikTok? This is why they want to ban social media. They're so mad that they don't get to control the narrative anymore. Israel, you know, China or Russia would. That was so stupid, you almost got me to say an R slur. That was how dumb you are. I almost did it. I went to 2000 mic brain. Like, you almost made me stoop to your level. That's how dumb you fucking are. I almost stooped to your level. Like, you're so dumb, I almost became bigoted myself. You fucking rat. Israel, China would have nothing to do with... Do you understand how much it costs for the United States to get... The United States has given Israel $330 billion. Given. Not sold. Do you think Israel's economy could afford to fight the war that they're fighting? Israel doesn't have an economy that's large enough to produce the weapons and economic activity necessary to do the bombs. They don't have the technology. You think China wants to give Israel $330 billion? You fucking idiot! The only reason Israel could even fight this war is because the United States is holding all the other countries back with threats and direct domestic interference and bribes. Like, do you think that Israel wouldn't already have been invaded and overcome if it wasn't for the United States? Of course the United States is holding Israel up. It's our colony. How are people this unaware of, like, material reality? It's like crazy. China would not be giving $330 billion to Israel, dude.
For debate, particularly in those immediate days in the aftermath of October 7th.
I would argue exactly the opposite.
I think China is against Israel, but it ain't like that. China isn't trying to fight a war with Israel, but China is certainly opposed to Israel in general. For example, you know, like voting for every anti-Israel resolution. The Chinese judge voting to indict Israel for crimes. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not saying China is some sort of like anti-Israel crusader because they're thousands of miles away. But they're certainly far, 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 far more anti-Israel. In fact, they even hosted an event of all the Palestinian... A Palestinian unity meeting was held in Beijing. Like, where do you people get off? You fucking losers, man. You're so dumb and so bad faith and so stupid.
Mike, China isn't trying to fight the United States and Israel in a war right now. Checkmate.
And I want to explain something to you very clearly and very loud and very proud. And I will start banning for this. This is going to become a new rule in this community. In fact, I'm going to be implementing it probably almost immediately. So consider this your last and final warning. If you hate on a whistleblower, you will be permanently banned. You will be permanently banned if you hate on a whistleblower. Everyone is aware that people that worked at the State Department or U.S. military did a bad thing. When they give up their career, when they give up their social situation, and they come out publicly as a voice for good, I don't give a shit about you trying to virtue signal about how more superior you are to them. They are useful for us to make our arguments and hopefully end this war. If you come out here and you spend your time attacking the whistleblower, you're fucking going to be permabanned. This is your last and final warning. Everybody in the chat now, consider yourself timed out for 60 seconds. If you attack whistleblowers in the future, permaban, no appeal, perma, you're gone. And I don't review appeals, like unless like randomly I feel like it. Oftentimes 3 years later or more. So getting banned here is very, very permanent. Okay, shut the fuck up about doing your virtue signaling over how much better you are than a whistleblower. You're dumb. Shut your fucking mouth. If I see it even one time, you're gone. How many people do I have banned? Not that many. I probably banned some of the fewest people of any political stream. The only reason why the media is doing this hit piece is because Trump is going to office. If cobbler to would I have feelings this didn't come out? Probably true. I don't give a shit that you're like, wow, you worked at the State Department, you're an evil bastard. It's like, yeah, are you going and finding random people still at the State Department doing the genocide to yell at? No, shut your fucking mouth then. I know I'm annoying in chat, but I'm here to learn and support the stream. We need people like Mike. Thank you. You know, none of you are actually that annoying. The only people that are, I'm just telling you though, that this is a rule. If you attack whistleblowers, you will. Ethan Klein would call me an anti-Semite. This is one of the most senior State Department officials saying that the person in charge of U.S. foreign policy was Benjamin Netanyahu, a foreign states leader, and that career American diplomats, career American members of our military were told that international law does not apply, and if you complain, you're going to lose your career. These are multiple. Here's what I want people to understand something that's very important here. These are people giving up careers and pensions that they have spent their entire life trying to get to speak out about this. Do you understand how bad and evil you must be for somebody who has dedicated their lives to this career to basically throw it all away? We're talking about pure fascistic, genocidal evil. These people are fucking heroes. Children, and then said, well, we don't know that it was an American bomb that did it. Right? Like the confusion wasn't over the war crime. The confusion was U.S. weapons used to commit the war crime? And let me tell you, chat, that's very easy to figure out if you go to the scene of the crime and collect 5 seconds of evidence. You'll see the bomb fragments. It says USA on it. The only way there could be a question is private chat. Every single thing that I've been saying, and I've been saying it since October of 2023. How come I knew? How come I knew that this was going on right away? How come I properly labeled it and predicted every single thing that was going to happen right away? How come we here were able to figure that out so easily and so early?
Come later. Actually, I was watching Hasan play that game for my research. That actually looked pretty cool.
For research?
Yeah, because he does this thing where he goes, how can I address criticism at a time when genocide's happening? And then like
address criticism. Address me. Pay attention to me. Address me.
Well, there's no criticism. You're just saying we're anti-Semitic because we had a Yemeni teen on. Why aren't you addressing the criticism that you ignore that 60 Minutes report that I just watched, Ethan? Go watch the 60-minute report on what Israel is doing. How about you go read the Amnesty International report on genocide? How about you read the International Criminal Court warrants for persecution and mass murder of Palestinians from the International Court of Justice? How about you read the South African petition to the International I'm sorry, it was the indictment for the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice's petition by South Africa for measures against Israel for committing the crime of genocide. Why aren't you never criticizing or taking seriously the crimes that Israel is committing in Gaza right now? Why do you try to like refocus? Hasan is playing a video game, guys, and not paying attention to me. Bro, you're broken up. It's over. No one's listening to you, man. No one gives a shit. It's over. You're never going to be friends. You're never going to be in the cool kid group. It's over. Go put on blackface. Get back to your roots. That's your only path forward. You might as well just do the full right-wing pivot. Literally exactly what Bill Clinton said when he first met Netanyahu. Who the fuck is the superpower here? Yeah, I know.
Israel says its troops now control the territory's entire border with Egypt. As Israeli offensive expands.
7 months ago with that video, he raged about Carter giving the Panama Canal back like he was president-elect himself. I mean, you know, Ethan supports using military might to seize as much as possible that is profitable for you. And I want to say, you know what, Ethan? Let's use our logic. What is supporting Israel getting for America? Hatred around the world? Like the rest of the world hates us for killing children? Is it getting us resources? Is it getting us profits? Like, what are we going to do? A second-rate like fizzy drink maker? Like, what are we getting from Israel? You guys don't have much oil. You don't have, you know, the diamonds that you cut are from the Congo and the genocidal government that you support and the genocidal Israeli billionaire that corrupts that government. What exactly are we getting? If we thought purely Machiavellian, what are we getting from Israel? Nothing. I don't think you want to live that life where might makes right. I hear that, okay, so there's a rumor of a ceasefire possibly happening in Gaza. I am drawing up, sorry chat, from Jeremy Scahill. Important to note, the Gaza ceasefire deal that may be reached soon is overwhelmingly consistent with the deal Hamas officially agreed to on July 2nd. Biden allowed Netanyahu to torch that deal and continue the genocide with a steady flow of U.S. weapons and political support. Here is one of the stories I wrote about the Gaza ceasefire / exchange of captives deal that could have been signed in the summer and how the U.S. facilitated Netanyahu's sabotage. The dominant U.S.-Israeli narrative has been that it has been Hamas hindering or obstructing a ceasefire deal in Gaza is an epic lie that Anthony Blinken has promoted more than anyone else on the planet. He was so weird about the Jimmy Carter death of the Panama Canal return. By the way, Americans didn't give a shit about the Panama Canal. That's not why Jimmy Carter lost, you historically illiterate moron. It was also part of a wave of decolonization that was happening worldwide. It was a way for the United States to gain positive opinion of Latin America because we were engaged in a Cold War. And we didn't want to be seen as an imperial aggressor while the rest of the world was decolonizing. You dumb piece of shit. The reason why Jimmy Carter lost the election is because of the Arab oil embargo that cut America off from energy and caused stagflation, which was massive inflation plus a recession. And people were fed up of Jimmy Carter's failures of neoliberal centrist politics that you adore. He was basically Joe Biden. It wasn't that he was some sort of peace-loving guy. And the reality is that Panama only exists because America carved it out of Colombia in order to build the canal. We funded basically the entire idea of Panamanian nationalism in order to have a puppet state that we could steal the canal zone from. Panama isn't even a real country. It's a country that was literally created for the United States to have a puppet. We stole that fucking land. Pathetic.
It probably feels like the nightmare will never end as people in Southern California face a 6th straight day of deadly wildfires. Crews still at it with winds expected to intensify again this week. At least 24 people have lost their lives. The Palisades fire still largely uncontained, and it's already the most destructive fire in LA County history. One local official, it probably feels like the nightmare will never end. National Weather Service warning of a, quote, particularly dangerous situation by midweek. All of this threatening to fuel the major fires, which have already burned more than 40,000 acres in just under a week. That is an area bigger than the size of Paris, France. California Governor Gavin Newsom says fire crews are moving into hot spots in advance.
So I'm up here in Mandeville Canyon, which was this.
Even the diamonds Israel makes from slavery is going to be obsolete because of China. Oh, nice. Yeah, diamonds are plunging value around the world. China to blame. Yeah, because you could just make diamonds in a lab that are way bigger and better than anything that you can mine. And you can't chemically tell them apart.
Site in the last 2 nights of tremendous investment of resources, firefighters working the line, a lot of those assets still here, not only in anticipation of potential flare-up here in the Palisades fire, but also pre-positioned, as we're pre-positioning in many counties throughout the state of California because of the upcoming winds we're expecting. Monday, peaking Monday night into Tuesday, extending into Wednesday.
Joining me now to discuss the latest is Brian Rice, the president of the California Professional Firefighters. Brian, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for being with us. We did hear from the governor overnight about pre-positioning fire crews for more potential flare-ups. What do you think is the scale of the risk of that here?
I think that for the next couple of days, and the governor said it through Wednesday, there's a pretty large spread of a red flag warning. I think the threat is very real, and that the state of California is moving resources in to match, I can't say match that threat, but in anticipation of that threat. The threat's real.
So, sir, at this point, I mean, what do you think are the biggest risks from these winds? Which neighborhoods?
What are the environmental impact differences between mine versus created diamonds? Okay, created diamonds are created in a lab that is sterile, built up in an area, uses relatively cheap carbon and a little bit of electricity, versus massive open pit mines full of child slaves that are being mass murdered by bloody tyrants who decapitate and amputate limbs to keep workers in line. And it leaves massive scars and environmental devastation across wide swaths of Central Africa. That's the difference between the environmental impact.
Do you think are potentially...
It's like the difference between the Exxon Valdez oil spill and a solar panel on your roof.
More at risk than others, and what does that mean for your crews?
Well, right now, it looks like the big threats they're talking about the Brentwood area, the Santa Monica area, that the governor mentioned, Mandeville Canyon. In some of these areas on the northern end of the Palisades fire, you're seeing areas that haven't had a fire in some cases up to 40 years. So you're seeing a much higher fuel load. They know that. They're getting resources in there. But Casey, it's like I've said, every time I've spoken to you.
That's how, like, Americans, and like comparing it to China, right? No, first of all, we all just expect professionals to do it for us, number one. Lazy, imperialist mindset, no solidarity, no grit. You think Americans could beat China in a war? Like, can we stop for a second and just say how ridiculous that is? America would get dog walked. We'd be lucky to only give up Alaska. Okay, so what the fuck are you talking about? Like, Americans could never beat China in a million years. The only way is if they did full, global thermonuclear strategic exchange to destroy the human race in kind of a petulant, nihilistic boomer last hurrah. No fucking way.
The weather matters here. It's still dry. The humidity levels are coming up a little bit. I think that they probably aren't beginning to see the type of overnight recovery in the dew point and the humidity levels that they want to see. But it's not single digit like it was when this fire started. And right now it all matters. And it is the neighborhoods that are in front of the flame front, the flame front. And then some of the things that add to that, they'll have islands of areas in the burn that haven't burned. They were saved. Or the fire moved around them. Those pose a threat too. You don't want to see a start in those areas that help fuel a flame front.
So, sir, what are you hearing from firefighters on the ground about what they may need here? I mean, are they running into any issues along the lines of, obviously there's already been investigations called for and apparently launched into why the hydrants ran dry in the Palisades, for example. Are there any other issues like that you're hearing from crews, and what are they telling you about how residents can best help them right now?
Some of the things that I've spoken to last night with one of the crews, a leader on a USAR team, their morale is very, very high. They're starting to roll into getting some rest periods. But the reason that the morale is high is, there's a lot of interaction with the community. As firefighters rotate off the line, they'll have those connections in some areas. As they're transversing or going towards the fire line, they connect with citizens, and those interactions mean everything. You hear their stories. They ask, a person asks you for help, or what did you see in this area? And people are tired. There'll be time for exhaustion, and there'll be a time to get rest when the wind stops blowing and we see our containment numbers go up.
Really, I'm glad to hear that that you are hearing that the morale is high because of how much support they're getting from the community. That is at least something positive to look to in what is obviously an incredibly difficult and continuing to be a very dangerous situation. Brian Rice, have been so grateful to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
The last thing residents in and around Los Angeles want to hear this morning. Overnight, officials raised the fire threat level to the highest level, extremely critical in some places. That is a 3 out of 3 in terms of danger, and it could stay that way for days. Shortly, the wind speeds could be near hurricane level gusts again. The fear is the conditions will soon become explosive. Just moments ago, a fire battalion chief shared this update.
With the red flag warning imminent, every one of our fires that's currently active, the containment lines that are not fully contained yet are still a challenge, and it's possible that wind could blow in.
All right, more than 100,000 people are in the evacuation zones this morning. The death toll stands at 24, but that number could rise. There are dozens of people said to be missing. Let's get right to Malibu. CNN's Stephanie Elam is there. Stephanie, we can see you standing in front of just the destruction.
So much destruction, and you were talking about those winds, John. They are really starting to kick up now. I don't know if you can tell as well. Yeah, I guess this guy is flapping up here so you can see this. It is really windy, and this is part of the concern because right now it is cooler. It is a little chilly out here, and that usually happens during wildfires where we see the flames kind of simper down into the earth and we don't really see them. But then as daylight comes, things start to heat up and we start to see these blazes come back. But this is the overall effect of what we've been seeing here. Take a look at this. This was an inn right on the Pacific Coast Highway, just decimated by the blaze, the Palisade Fire coming through here. And you think about it, the Palisade Fire has burned through more than 23,000 acres. The Eaton Fire over on the east side burning through 14,000 acres. And according to data released by CAL FIRE, they're saying that the amount of land burned between the Eaton Fire, the Palisades Fire, and the Hearst Fire is more than the size, the total area of Paris. Larger. I mean, just phenomenal numbers to actually try to compute and digest of just how large these fires are. The other concern, though, with these winds is that while they have had some containment come together for some of these fires, and some of them they've knocked down, the issue is with these winds, those containment numbers could go back down. And I know a lot of people just want to get back into their homes if they're in those evacuation areas. But take a listen to a CAL FIRE official here explain why they don't want people to go back prematurely.
Part of the reason we're keeping evacuation orders in place is not only because of fire risk, but it's also because we have down power lines, which are potentially live. Unknown status of gas lines, and every bit of that ash that it's out there is toxic with petroleum products from the houses that burned. So it is an unsafe place for families to be.
That's very true. And even here, standing here by this inn, even though I'm not in it, I can smell that metallic smell that you smell after wildfires that goes through not just brush and trees, but through buildings like this. And that is part of the concern, along with the fact that we have these wind warnings. So they're saying if things go the way they hope they go over the next couple of days, the earliest that we may see people going back into their homes is on Thursday, John.
You know, this has been going on for so long now, in days more of it to come. It's got to be overwhelming for so many of the people who have lost their homes. It's got to be exhausting for you, too. Stephanie Elam, thank you so much for being there. Appreciate it.
We want to go live now to that update we promised from official.
By the way, Chad, extreme fire behavior in the LA area from an hour ago. China's total power consumption has gone up in 1 year, 1.5. Germany's. Yeah, they're building it. They're building it out. Imagine needing to find 1.5 Germany's of new power generation every year. 2024 final numbers aren't yet, but if the trend from the first 11 months of the year holds, we should see 550 terawatts of that growth came from clean energy, and only 100 terawatts was met by thermal. So in other words, you're talking about like what, 80-90% of their energy was renewable energy. 85% only 85% clean, guys. Only 85% clean energy. China bad. They only did 85% clean energy, guys. China's 1 year growth equals other countries' total annual consumption. Yeah, they have 1.4 billion people. Of course their growth should be insane. And Chinese people have the right to have electricity. And thankfully, the Communist Party is providing it.
Officials there in California. Let's listen in.
Inspected. Severe fire weather conditions will continue through Wednesday. Please be assured that all fire departments and all law enforcement agencies in the area will be prepared. The anticipated winds, combined with low humidities and low fuel moistures, will keep the fire threat in all of Los Angeles County critical. I ask all Los Angeles County residents in wildfire-prone areas to understand that the necessary public safety power shutoffs are important for our collective safety in preventing the next wildfire natural disaster. I did want to dispel one rumor. The LA County Fire Department has never turned down any offers for mutual aid assistance and resources. Repopulation will not occur until all areas are safe. Additionally,
from the EIA, it looks like we're at 21% renewable. Yeah. So if America had public transport, then the workers being paid stagnant wages would be fine? No. Workers should have a growing share of national productivity. The more that productivity is produced, the more the workers should get. Capital share of profits should be minimal. China has lifted 800 million people out of extreme poverty. They invested $300 billion a year in green energy. Actually, you're underestimating it. China invested $546 billion in clean energy. China invests $546 billion in clean energy, far surpassing the United States. China accounted for nearly half of the world's low-carbon spending in 2022, which would challenge U.S. efforts to bolster its domestic clean energy manufacturing. That is nearly 4 times the amount of U.S. investments, which totaled $141 billion. The European Union was second to China with $180 billion in clean energy investment. China also dominated low-carbon manufacturing, accounting for more than 90% of the $79 billion invested in that sector last year. By the way, chat, only $79 billion was invested in clean energy in China. Or sorry, nationwide. Worldwide. Only $79 billion was invested worldwide in clean energy manufacturing. We spent $850 billion on the military, largely to defend what? Fucking fossil fuels. Do you understand the madness that I have to deal with? I know this shit. Do you understand how I am a fucking saint for the amount of patience I show to liberals and conservatives in this country? They don't even know basic facts about the world. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about anything.
Our CL-415 Super Scooper that was damaged because of a drone incursion is reportedly going to be flying tomorrow morning. It has been repaired, and we're waiting for the FAA to give us approval to fly again. Thank you to Board Chair Supervisor Catherine Barger and Supervisor Lindsay Horvath for your unwavering leadership and continued support throughout this unprecedented disaster. And finally, to all the Los Angeles County residents affected by this catastrophe, please be assured your firefighters continue to work towards full containment of these wildfires from the air and on the ground. We stand alongside each of you as you begin the repopulation of evacuated areas when safe and the rebuilding of your homes, your communities, and your lives. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Kristen Crowley, Los Angeles City Fire Department Fire Chief. I'll just start off with just a moment to share with everybody out there that's been impacted by these wildland fires that the entire LAFD family, sworn civilian, our city family, Mayor Bass, city leadership, everybody, our thoughts and hearts and prayers go out to you as we continue to push forward and mitigate this emergency. We understand the impacts, and we're working and will continue to work very, very, very hard for everyone. Another point I want to make is that also we are so very grateful for the firefighters and the first responders that have already arrived and continue to arrive in the Southern California region. We absolutely know that we cannot do this on our own, and we are tremendously appreciative of all of your continued support. As the increasing wind event is upon us as we speak, the Los Angeles City Fire Department has maximized our resource capabilities and response capabilities. All available LAFD resources have been staffed. I have strategically pre-positioned engine strike teams and task forces which are dedicated to rapid response for any new fire that breaks out in the city. In addition, I've directed the Fire Prevention Bureau to augment wildfire patrols in high hazard areas. The Palisades fire, your LAFD remains committed to this fire, and we have a significant number of engines that have been dedicated to this fire. The crews that are involved, we have crews from up and down the state, outside of the state, have made excellent work overnight, mopping up flare-ups and hotspots. Their primary focus last night was on the Mandeville Canyon area, and this fire is now at 23,713 acres with 14% containment, with 5,123 personnel assigned to the Palisades incident. Firefighters will continue to work diligently throughout the day to increase containment and prevent further fire spread. Again, I want to focus my comments on the amount of resources that are here in the Palisades, from the first responders all the way up to our incident command teams. Again, we're going to keep working really hard for you. Just a brief comment on the Hearst fire. It's been held to 799 acres with 95% containment. Again, thank you to the community members that are out there for remaining.
Look at the devastation. I mean, it really does remind you of Gaza, right? But here's the thing. When you put pictures of the devastation in Southern California next to pictures of devastation in Gaza, you may think it's a stretch to connect them, but it absolutely is not. Instead of the United States spending our immense material wealth here at home, protecting each other, building the infrastructure, hardening ourselves against the consequences of climate change, building a green energy future, building public transit and electrical systems to avoid an excessive dependence on foreign fossil fuels. Every dollar we would have, if we invested it here at home to make ourselves better and hardened against climate change and doing the green transition, would make the necessity of spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the Middle East less important every single day. If we were 100% renewable energy, we wouldn't. Why would we care about what happens in Saudi Arabia? What would we care about what happens in Libya? We wouldn't, because we don't need their oil anymore. The United States of America, if it was primarily electrified and used the vast renewable energy and nuclear resources that we have, has more than enough oil to provide for the few industrial processes that require oil as a base. We wouldn't need to spend trillions of dollars killing brown kids abroad. So by spending those trillions of dollars killing brown kids abroad, we're not spending those trillions of dollars at home. We're not making our community safer and cleaner and greener and hardened against fire. We are killing people and destroying hundreds of billions of dollars of wealth. Every single pile of rubble in that picture is a family's life that was just destroyed. Pets lost, family members killed, memories destroyed, birth certificates, photo albums, keepsakes, all of it utterly destroyed. Not to mention the ecological disaster. Do you know how poisonous and toxic the dust from a wildfire that has destroyed a community is? We're talking about cancer. You're seeing cancer. You're seeing asthma. You're seeing premature death. You're seeing heart disease. Do you think it's just the building being burned down and the harm is over? No. This also means higher rents and higher prices for everybody in the entire city. You have 100,000 people evacuated. They need somewhere to go. I hope you don't mind seeing your rent explode. And the conservative response to this is to look at it and go, it was DEI, it was DEI, it was DEI, it was DEI. The liberal response is to go, it's just climate change, but we can't do anything about it.
Vigilant. We're not in the clear. I want to make sure of that. We are not in the clear as of yet, and we must not let our guard down. As we have right now extreme fire behavior, and we need to make sure that the community is staying updated with the most information, updated information as well. Follow all evacuation warnings and orders without delay. And please, please stay safe. I would now like to introduce our next speaker, and that is Sheriff Luna. Thank you.
Robert Luna, Sheriff of Los Angeles County. Regarding our deployment, we still have well over 1,000 of our Los Angeles County deputies out there working on 12-hour shifts. We have 172 California Highway Patrol officers. I'd like to thank the commissioner who was with me yesterday, Sean DeRee, for all of his assistance. I also want to thank Major General Beavers. I was with him as well, and he has fortunately been able to increase the amount of National Guard assistance that he is giving us to up to 600. And he told me yesterday if we need more, we can ask for more. And we are strategically looking at that, analyzing it, and we'll ask as needed. Evacuations, we have approximately, and this is some good news because it's dropped, we have over 92,000 people who are under evacuation orders and approximately 89,000 people who are under evacuation warnings. I want our community to know this, and Chief Maroney did talk about this for a second. In every conversation we're having about evacuations, warnings, whether they're going to implement them or take them away, the conversation about repopulation is on all of our minds. I know that we are attending, staff's attending community meetings, whether they be out in the Palisades Fire area in Malibu for us at LA County Sheriffs, in the Altadena area. We are hearing our community loud and clear, and we want to get you in there as soon as possible. But I want to reiterate what is holding us up. This is very important. We are still, for the Altadena area, we are in the third day.
Let's believe insurance companies, developers are going to try and destroy any evidence of the proud history and culture of Altadena as a town where African Americans could actually get a home and build community for decades in LA that the fire didn't destroy. Oh, absolutely.
Of grid searching. It is a very grim task. And we, unfortunately, every day we're doing this, we're running across the remains of individual community members. That is not easy work, very sad to report, and I believe that work is not only going to continue, but I believe will continue to find remains. So please be patient with us. People are saying, I just want to go look at my house and I want to see what's left. We know that, but we have people literally looking for the remains of your neighbors. Please be patient with us. There's a lot of hazards in the area still. The area has not been rendered safe. Please be patient with us. And then we have the potential of crime scenes. And I'm not saying that's
if California was communist, it would have had water for fires? Absolutely. This motherfucker doesn't understand communism, man. If there's one thing that communist regimes or socialist regimes know how to do, it's called build infrastructure, motherfucker. They love fucking dams. They love big mega projects. That's what socialist states love more than anything. If anything, they would be putting this fire out quadrillion times better than what LA's neoliberal weak. And when I say neoliberal, a lot of conservatives think I'm talking about like Democrats or something. I'm talking about you. Neoliberalism describes Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump just as much as it does Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. They all believe in fundamentally the same shit. They're on the same team. The very funniest thing is people who attack Democrats and that are like, that's why I vote Republican. You dumbass motherfucker. They all believe the same shit.
But it is, I'm just saying we have to think ahead because we can't go back from that. So please be patient with us. The curfew is still in effect, 6 p.m. To 6 a.m. for specifically the mandatory evacuation areas in both the Palisades impacted area and the Eaton fire impacted areas. Those are subject to change depending on need, one way or another. We understand, again, that people want to go back, but it is dangerous to do so, and we will not put anybody's safety at risk. I want to talk about arrest for the LA County Sheriff's area. Overnight, we had several other arrests. It brings it up to a total of 34 in our geographic area. We have 30 in the Eaton fire area, and we have 4 in the Palisades area. Last night specifically, again, for LA County Sheriff's jurisdiction, we arrested 4. 2 were for curfew violations. 2 were arrested for 1 drone incident. To my knowledge, we have now had 2 specific drone incidents that have resulted in 3 arrests. So as I talk to our community again, if you do not have business in the evacuation areas, do not go there.
I want to show you this, chat. This is to refute some of the stuff I saw coming out of liberal accounts on Twitter.
Period. Did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city? It's my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say justifiably what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community. Did they fail you? That is our job, and I tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs. Did they fail you? Yes.
Chief Kristen Crowley, I believe the anchors wanted to ask a question back there. Had some comments.
We do, Gigi. If you could please ask her regarding the Times article that came out that the Santa Ynez Reservoir was closed to repairs and it was empty. 117 million gallons of water could have been used in this fight.
The question is about the Santa Ynez Reservoir being empty. There's been a lot of questions about that.
Sure. So my stance on this is when a firefighter comes up to a hydrant, we expect there's going to be water. We don't control the water supply. Our firefighters are there to protect lives and property and to make sure that we're properly trained and equipped. That's my position on this. So if there's no water, I don't know how the water gets to the hydrants. Please defer that to DWP or whomever controls that part. But I can tell you the resiliency of our firefighters, if there's no water, they're going to go find water. They're going to figure out a way to do the best they can with what they've got in a very dynamic situation.
And I know you expressed concerns that those DWP hydrants would not be inspected thoroughly because of the budget cuts.
That is something to discuss, and we're going to look into that in regard to how we can ensure there's going to be water when we need it. But in the end, I'm going to defer that to DWP and whomever else controls the supply. I can guarantee you that when our firefighters showed up on that day with what they had, they did absolutely everything they could do to rescue and to save people's lives and property. And that's the bottom line. Now let's get them what they need to do their jobs. And so
let's get them water, Chief, because I was with your firefighters and they literally were watching a house burn down with pain in their eyes, not being able to do anything except pull water from a swimming pool to try to save a nearby structure that wasn't burning, and literally watching a house burn to the ground because they had no water.
That's exactly right. But did they continue to work, and did they continue to do what they had to do the best they could with what they had? Yes.
Chief, follow-up. Thank you very much for talking to us. We appreciate it. I believe we have a follow-up question from the studio.
Question on that reservoir issue. Is the fire department aware of when these resources are depleted, just like that reservoir had no water? Was she aware of that fact, that it was under construction and there was no water there?
Sandra Endo, one of our anchors, wants to know if the department is advised that the Santa Ynez Reservoir was going to be emptied. Were you aware that there was no water there?
No, we weren't aware of that.
They don't have to advise you?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So you had no idea that there wasn't such needed resource?
No, we weren't.
Okay, so I think it's a little bit conservative to hyper-focus on each individual specific reservoir and try to we didn't really need to do anything because if we just slightly managed things differently, it would have worked out. And the reality is that's not the case. From what I understand, the reservoir was being repaired. It needed repairs because guess what? If reservoirs fail, it causes flood damage. It can cause massive inundation. So you can't just be like, I'm never going to repair dams and reservoirs because we might need the water to fight fires. You need to have less fragility in your system so that reservoirs can be repaired without it causing firefighting water to fail. This is kind of like a conservative strategy of being like, oh, there's enough resources, it's just being mismanaged, as a way of avoiding accountability for the fact that there were budget cuts.
Chief Kristen Crowley, again, Chief of the Los Angeles City Fire Department. Thank you for talking to us. I know it's been a very exhaustive, emotional, and I imagine you're mad, and I imagine you're sad. You may not want to talk about that anger or that disappointment, but
Who gives a fuck? Okay, I don't know why people do this. I don't understand it. Like, maybe this is just my like autistic empathy deficit, but it's just like, I don't give a shit if the fire chief is sad. Who gives a fuck? Like, what the fuck? You have 10 seconds to talk. Tell me about your emotions. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Incredible destruction out in LA. At least 10,000 structures destroyed, 10 people dead, which is based upon the amount of destruction, sort of amazing. The winds out there were incredible, sometimes hitting 100 miles an hour. I'm sure people have seen the video of these firestorms, essentially, that were blazing. Right. A lot has been made about whether the LA Fire Department was sufficiently prepared and resourced to deal with.
This is really weird because Emma is sitting here, but she posted this on Twitter. Lots of people are spreading the $17 million fire budget cut story, and it's just not accurate. Good thread, and this is wrong. In fact, the LA controller posted, who's a left-winger, and said, no, that's wrong. They did cut the fire budget. So Emma's sitting here, but she's not saying, I disagree. Why is that? Why is she leaving posts up like this, spreading misinformation for right-wing Karen Bass? I don't understand. What's going on here?
Something like this.
And maybe Emma's going to say something quickly to, like, square that circle, but I just find that odd. I'm like,
fact of the matter is, ultimately, and you know, there was some initial reports that the LA fired budget was cut by $50 million.
17, but then there's also these counterclaims about a.
No, it's not. There's not counter. Oh, so she's okay. She's gonna do it. There's not counterclaims. Objectively, the fire department budget was cut, according to the city's accountant, and the fire department. There's no question here. There's no question. This is absolutely 100%. No, there's no doubts about the. By the way, this is actually incredibly bad. Like, this is bad. This is bad. The purpose of a journalist is to investigate and determine which claim is correct, because one of them is correct. Either the budget was cut or the budget wasn't cut. All right? That is a factual question. It isn't up in the air. It's not a mystery. It's either one or the other. Either it's raining outside or it's sunny outside. It is not one side claims it's raining, the other side says it's not raining. I guess you'll have to make up your own mind. No, this is a factual fact question. There is no question. And by the way, I'm gonna do the journalism for you, because it seems like Majority Report is not capable on this one. They cut the budget, and this is the LA controller, LA elected controller, progressive Kenneth Mejia, or how you say that name. I don't know how do you say this? Mejia? I don't know how to speak Spanish, chat. This is really embarrassing.
Mejia.
Mejia. Okay. J is like an H. Okay, we're learning it. Mejia. Okay, we're learning. I need to take Spanish classes. In Pennsylvania, I took German. So if you want to understand, because Pennsylvania has people who speak German as their primary language. I don't know if you know this. It's dying out, but Mejia. Okay. Controller Kenneth Mejia says, seeing city officials in the press ignore the severe impacts of these budget cuts, especially the ones covering for their poor budget decisions to cut a majority of departments' budgets, and even after Chief Crowley told them about the impacts these cuts have had, is disgraceful. But they keep saying, but LAFD got a raise in November. If the fires happened in August or October, would these same city officials that admit the LAFD's budget got cut in July, where 61 civilian support positions were eliminated and sworn payroll and expenses were reduced? By the way, the money they kept saying is being held for the Los Angeles Fire Department's raises are in this separate account, hasn't even been transferred to the LAFD's operating budget as of this date. How do we know all this? Because we're the city accountant. We know the city's budget and finances. We didn't want to get into the city's budget and finances during these times, but to see city officials come out and ignore the fire chief's warnings / impacts on the department's budget cuts made us jump in. We can explain how this all works and how we got here. Just scroll down. By the way, what's not being talked about is Chief Crowley's requested $914 million for this current fiscal year's budget, which started last July. Instead, the fire department got $819 million, a budget cut of $17,553,814 from their prior year's adopted budget of $837,191 and $837,191,237. After we're through these disastrous fires, we will hold a whole day's worth of our usual education sessions where we educate people about the city's budget and finances. That's what we're known for. We will make sure to invite all these city officials too. And here's the chart he posted that you've probably seen. Police, an additional $126 million. Fire, negative $17.6 million. Street services, $21.4 million. Sanitation, $15.1 million. If you've been in Los Angeles, California, you know they need more sanitation services. It's not just homeless encampments that I'm talking about. There's just trash strewn all over the place. It's one of the most disgusting cities I've ever been in. Legitimately. There is massive weeds poking out of like asphalt that are like choked with trash that looks like it's been there for like 18 months. It is without a doubt one of the dirtiest, most disgusting cities I've ever been in. And they cut sanitation by $15 million. Public Works by $8 million. Street lighting by $5 million. The controller's office by $2.5 million. Hey, the controller is reporting on how we're abusing the budget. Cut the controller's budget. Emergency management, they got $31,000 more. The city attorney got $10 million more. So that's that city attorney getting $10 million more. That is a way of rewarding campaign donors, in case you're wondering.
$50 million fund that's in waiting, and you can, I mean, I took the bait and got into the weeds on some of this stuff, but I think overall what's frustrating about this discourse is that even if it were true, we should be focusing not really on city budgetary issues in single digit percentages as it relates to this story. It's about the capitalist climate criminals who have created the conditions.
Okay, so right off the bat, I want to say this, and I want to say it loud, and I want to say it proud. This type of politics will destroy the left. What Emma is suggesting is incredibly damaging to the left. It's incredibly damaging to our for a variety of reasons. If the left wants to be successful in this country and around the world, we must hold people accountable for mismanagement, for graft, for failure. The Democratic Party is associated with Los Angeles, California. The Democratic Party is a failure. Yes, it's the capitalist class. Yes, it's the climate criminals. And they overwhelmingly support people like Karen Bass and Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi. This is the facts. If you want the left to succeed, it has to be willing to attack people on the Democratic Party who have failed their constituents, and we must hold them accountable. Doing this fucking like, oh, I'm going to obscure the responsibility for the failure after 4 years of Joe Biden as president, after he had a trifecta. Everybody told him that climate change was coming. Everybody told him we needed a Green New Deal. And here you are covering up for his fucking crimes and his failures. That's not a failure of the left. That's a failure of the centrist Democratic Party. And it should be called out for what it is. And the reason why this is important is because Karen Bass, I want you to understand this. Karen Bass is opposed to the left within Los Angeles. Karen Bass represents the anti-left in Los Angeles. Karen Bass represents the status quo in Los Angeles. So when you as a nationwide left-wing leader and influencer are giving aid and comfort for the people who are stabbing your audience in the back in Los Angeles, you are helping destroy the left in America, period. And I think we need to have higher standards with people on the left in national media. You want to represent yourself as a left-wing podcast? You need to actually be in touch with who your enemies are and who your allies are in these city fights. If you're going to report on it, if you're going to talk about it, you need to be knowing who's on whose side. And you need to be intervening on the side of people that are ideologically supportive of what you say you believe. If you just want to be a Democrat partisan, go work for MSNBC. If you just want to cover up and propagandize and lie to people, go work for a mainstream media outlet. If you're going to do this left-wing show, you need to work harder than this.
That are leading us to these disasters.
Well, there's no doubt, and let's just listen from the.
And by the way, and what's really annoying about this is if this was a story about New York, I think they would know who in New York is the centrists that are trying to take down the left, right? Like now you're in a city you don't live in, and you're fighting on behalf of the criminals who represent the right wing.
Horse's mouth, as it were. This is Los Angeles fire chief. It's quite clear that there was a $17 million budget cut, and the fire chief, like all agency heads, was sounding the alarm about this about a month ago, and they had to make some hard choices in terms of getting rid of maybe things that weren't emergency response functions of the fire department, probably just as important. But the bottom line is she says it basically at the end of this interview, which is nothing was going to stop this. We don't know how these fires started. I have some speculation, but the bottom line is this is a story about climate change, and this is a story about a mentality that we have broadly in this country, certainly, in terms of lawmakers and, frankly, voters who would undoubtedly punish. On one hand, you hear the story, there's too many high taxes in California. And then on the other hand, you're saying, well, you're not spending enough on, fire prevention. Of course, nobody else is saying that until the day after a fire rips through everything. Yep. But the bottom line is we as a people are not mentally prepared. And we are certainly vastly under-resourced, like vastly under-resourced. And frankly, incorrectly structured as a society.
LOL 5550 thinks Democrats are communists. There isn't one communist in the Democratic Party, which is unfortunate. But the Democratic Party believes in the neoliberal status quo. Donald Trump and the Democrats are pretty much the same exact party. The only thing is Donald Trump says the mean thing out loud, right? Like Democrats deport immigrants and go, oh, it hurts my heart so much to deport you. It hurts my heart so much to sanction Cuba. It hurts my heart so much to sanction Venezuela. It hurts my heart so much to see the Gazan people harmed. And Donald Trump is like, I love deporting immigrants. I love killing the kids in Gaza. It's the same exact shit. It's just what kind of presentation do they do around it? And I understand if you're an evil piece of shit, like you probably are more attracted to the proud nihilistic program of Trump. But they fundamentally do the same exact shit. That's why Donald Trump was a Democrat most of his life. That's why he went to, he invited Bill and Hillary Clinton to his wedding. Because it's a giant club and you ain't in it, bitch. That's why Obama and Trump were yucking it up at Carter's funeral. You think they're enemies. They're all on the same team. That makes you stupid. That makes you dumb. You actually think Donald Trump represents any kind of different policy from Joe Biden. That's rich.
To deal with climate change. There hasn't been a drop of rain out in LA for 6-7 months now. When these type of winds, Santa Ana winds come, usually the ground is at least a little bit moist. There's a little bit of rain, at least this time of year out in LA, but it's just not happening. But here is Christian Crowley, Los Angeles fire chief, on with Nora O'Donnell. This was yesterday.
Those people have mental illness. Okay, what is Team Party Wave saying? 600 messages already. You've been following me since November. My mother is Irish and Native American, and my dad is Irish and German. That means that you're a mongrel that the Nazis would kill, and that you're part of a subordinate, inferior race. I can't believe you're trying to do racism. Don't you get embarrassed doing racism when you would be considered a subhuman by the racists? Doesn't that kind of give you pause? Do you think you're inferior? Do you think you're genetically inferior based on your race? Because I could tell you the white racists who came up with the ideas you're spreading do. Do you believe you're inferior? Say you're an inferior race, and then you can promote anti-black racism. Until that point, shut your fucking mouth, dumbass.
That you sent last month that the budget cuts have, quote, severely limited.
I was born in Brentwood. No one gives a shit. That's not how Nazis work. They don't give a shit where you were born. They care about what your blood is and their invented racial theories. Do you not know the racial theories of the white supremacists that you're promoting? Do you not know that they believe you're an inferior race and they would deport you? Do you not understand that you're not part of the club? You're just a useful idiot to do anti-blackness? You can do all the anti-blackness you want. You're never going to be included in the club when the rubber meets the road. And it isn't about Nazis, which is a very specific political party within a German country. We use that as shorthand for the idea of racial supremacy. You're not part of the club, man. I am. I'm German. You're not part of the club. Now, I'm part of the club, and I'm here to tell you it's fucking bullshit. I can't believe you believe in this shit that some dipshit fail son who couldn't even paint told you. Embarrassing. You live in the past, says the dude who's been talking about Rodney King for 2 hours. Dude, Rodney King was what, 1991? Oh, sorry, 1992. It's like, bitch, I'm old and I was a very small child when that happened. Like, what are you talking about? I think like being anti-black racist is very, very, very telling. And a lot of people try to promote their own whiteness by engaging in it. And it's one of the most pathetic pick-me things you can do. When a non-white person does anti-black racism, that is some pathetic shit.
The department's capacity to prepare for, train for, and respond to large-scale emergencies, including wildfires. You sent that warning about these budget cuts. Was this preventable?
I tell you, from the budget cut side of things, when there's a $17 million cut in our budget, operating costs, immediately from that point, I had to make some tough decisions. I looked at some other duties and responsibilities that we do as a fire department and had to focus right back on the training of our firefighters and also our ability to respond to...
I live in Venice now. Oh, I hope you don't burn down, man.
The everyday fires and EMS response.
Would that $17 million that had been cut from your budget have made a difference in this fight?
I would say with the lean forward posture that we took, knowing that a $17 million cut, we had to take from somewhere, and that was from the non-essential.
The Nazis don't exist. 8 German flags on the left, 8 German on the right, 88, the abbreviation known among Nazis as HH, Heil Hitler, then Alice for Germany, an elegant evasion of everything for Germany, and the SA slogan that is punishable by law. What other sides do we need to know what the AFD is aiming for? Oh yeah, they're definitely Nazis, of course.
Duties and responsibilities that as a fire department we have taken on over the past many years.
But with all due respect, in December you had warned that the budget cuts would severely limit your ability to respond to large-scale emergencies. Is that true or not?
Yes, so I would say yes. We're limited to a certain factor, yes.
And let me ask you about how that limited your response, because in the early hours of the wildfires, especially in the Pacific Palisades, we had a team on the ground, a crew there with a reporter.
Denham said you're really good at games. You could easily get to diamond rank at Marvel Rivals. I don't know about that. I don't know enough about the game. I mean, I can aim. Which, you know, is important, I guess. But I don't really know anything like how to play, and I've never really played a hero shooter before.
And witnessed number of homes burned to the ground, and there was not a fire truck in sight. How did that happen?
We pre-deployed the most amount of emergency resources that we could with what we had. With the pre-deployment, when the fire takes off, we're going to push as many resources that we can at that particular incident. And that's what we did. We did exactly what we could with what we had.
So you're saying you didn't have enough resources?
Oh my God.
I would say in a win event like this that we are living today in day 3, something that is as significant as this particular fire, I would say we threw exactly what we could with what we had. So if I had 1,000 engines to throw at this fire,
I honestly don't think 1,000 engines at that very moment could have tapped this fire down. Chief.
It's just
they've cut it up a little bit weird, and we didn't do.
Well, it's okay. It's a couple things here. First, disasters. Even if we plan for everything that's prudent, there's going to be natural disasters that overwhelm our ability and humble us as humans. This is very true. However, did you hear what is happening in the California's response to the wildfire is to remove regulations to make building back cheaper? It should be the opposite. If you're going to build back, you should have to go with a higher wildfire standard. It should be more secure. There should be more infrastructure to make it harder for this area to burn down. But they're going to be like, yeah, no, you could use even cheaper materials so it burns down even more intensely next time.
Do that, incidentally. That seems like there. But the bottom
that's
line
the only
is,
question you're asking? I mean...
Well, no, this is a legitimate question. It's a legitimate question. But the bottom line is, $17 million in this instance is not going to make a single difference in this fire. The bottom line is that as a society, we have not come to grips with the idea that climate change is real. There are going to be huge, we have to,
thank you, everybody,
we're
for all
going
the
to have
support.
to
You guys
do
are the
something
best.
Radically different. Because we are basically at the precipice of being unable to stop the ball rolling. I mean, we should still try and mitigate, because it could be a lot worse than it is now. But I mean, this is like essentially saying, the mayor didn't have enough boats prepared for when Miami goes underwater because of climate change. I mean, we're going to have to start to realize, like, there are areas where you're not going to be able to build. There are cities that we have that we may have to evacuate. We're not even remotely close to grasping this. And the talk of 17 million is small bore stuff.
Yep.
When you're talking about all these fire set. Now, it could be stuff like, there's at least one person has been taken into custody under suspicion of arson. There's other, theories that arson was started. I mean, it's amazing to contemplate that all of these fires basically kept popping up in distances that were probably unlikely about embers in certain situations. But when you talk about Altadena, you've got an older community. You've got a lot of electrical wires that are above ground. You've got high winds. I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being, an electrical fire there. When you've got a city like LA, you got to put all that stuff underground. You got to put all that electrical stuff underground. It's going to cost billions and billions of dollars. And now, they're talking about damages that are running in 50 billion, 60 billion. We don't even know where it's going to be at the end of this. And who wants to put a bet on whether Donald Trump is going to leverage this in California in some way? Who wants to put a bet on this?
Oh, I'm sure his political enemies. And the thing is like, again, there's the fact that I think it's natural for people to look for someone to blame. And part of what's just a little annoying to me about this story is that this is a much larger issue than any budgetary decision or whatever money was set aside. Oh, they're negotiating, whatever. It's not really a cut. It is a cut. The point is that if this is your focus right now, and it's 80% of what I'm seeing, and this is excluding people who are in LA and like having to deal with the city management and like the Democrats in cities. You don't have to preach to me. We deal with it in New York. And the fact that so much more money went to cops where it could have been reallocated.
Why do you think that is, Emma? Do you think the money gets allocated to cops via magic? Or is it because Democratic Party politicians vote for that? Democratic Party politicians run as some sort of left-winger and then immediately operate to create a grift factory of stealing money hand over fist and then pouring it into the cops to be their enforcers and take right-wing billionaire money.
Elsewhere. That is a problem in major cities across the country. But this isn't about LA City in the same, that's a part of it. The overall macro point is that as you mentioned in headlines, we've crossed that 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold in the year 2024, the hottest year on record, which means that the Paris climate goals won't be reached. And we're setting off a chain reaction of more of these kinds of disasters. And like the New York Post and Fox News on a national stage are the ones that are most focused on this budget thing because they can blame Democratic mayors. Let's not really, from a national perspective, give in to that impulse, because we have to be focusing on these climate criminals who are killing all of us. This isn't a regional thing. This is an international crime by oil and gas.
Play out over and over again, because you're going to see a bunch of billionaires. There's no way the insurance companies are going to be able to cover this to the extent that they hadn't already pulled out of LA. The federal government is not going to give this money because Donald Trump is going to basically auction off this area to the highest billionaire bidders. And we are basically watching what this entire process, just like we saw with New Orleans to a certain extent, this is a microcosm of the dynamic that is going to continue and escalate in the coming years. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day.
Okay, so the idea that, oh no, we can't point our fingers at the centrist politicians that are actually in power because we need to just do this kind of message discipline propaganda 24/7. And it's like, when is the left ever going to mature to the point where it tries to seize power for itself? If not now, when? When is the left ever going to be comfortable with the idea of taking the reins? If you have this kind of logic, which is right-wing Democrats do budget cuts on the fire department and you want to cover it up, it doesn't make any sense. Because if we don't criticize the centrist Democrats, you know who will? The Republicans. You know what will happen? The Republicans will win the mayor of LA like they've won the mayor of New York. The Republicans have won the mayor's race in New York because the Democrats were so corrupt and so unwilling to be criticized by the so-called left. You left the lane open for the right. If the left doesn't get out there and stand up and go after these centrist, corrupt pieces of shit, the right will take advantage of the hatred they inspire and win with faux populism.
California. Tonight, Bill Whitaker is covering the historic LA wildfires from the air and from
I have no interest in a left that is just criticism. I want a constructive left. And that's what I loved about Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders had a objectively concrete political program, the Green New Deal, that's still on his website. I want a left that actually says we can do better and is not just lazy, but actually does the work. And if just because you can't imagine a solution doesn't mean there's not a solution. You're not very bright. And that includes everyone, including myself. There are billions of people on this planet. You need to have a belief that we could change things and stop hemming yourself in with bullshit that you didn't even do the research for.
The ground, starting in Altadena, California.
The story will continue in a moment.
Wealth and status offer no protection. Oh no, but that's exactly why we need a national response. Climate change is not something that I can defeat alone, or in a community, or even in a city. It must be internationally coordinated, and that means the United States needs to stop blocking that coordination. Is like really easy to deal with. Like, that's kind of the funny part. Like, obviously it's disaster and horrible to see so many people's lives ruined, but if you look at it from my perspective, you're like, yeah, this is like a completely preventable and easily defeatable disaster if we work together, as a unified people. And so, like, if you're feeling helpless and kind of like, oh man, there's nothing we could have done, then like, obviously you're not only are you wrong, you're actually like toxically wrong, and you're helping to cause more of these kind of incidents. Because it's actually not that hard to deal with. It's not that it's hard or difficult. It's that it requires redistribution of wealth and power in society. And that's really the difficult part, right? It's not, we don't have any idea or any strategy or any belief on what we could do to minimize these kind of problems. It's more a redistribution of wealth and power in society away from maximum extractivism toward mutual aid, solidarity, and shared prosperity, right? That's the hard part. It's not like the engineering or the mitigation or anything like that. It's the political part. Even with warning, imagine all of a sudden you're told you have to leave everything and run.
Welcome, everybody, to Good Day Late, 6 o'clock. I am Melvin Roberts.
What's going on? How are the winds? What is the situation? Oh, is it getting worse?
With Gigi Gracia. She's in downtown LA right now, where city and county officials gave an update on the wind events and the wildfires and answered some questions this morning. Hi there, Gigi.
Roxanne, Sandra, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, rather. You've been going over the numbers, the latest containment numbers. One of the most important things Los Angeles County Fire Chief Anthony Maroney stressed today is that the fires are not out, even though we are not seeing those huge plumes of dark smoke and the active fire. The fire is not out. The fires are not out. The Palisades fire only 14% contained. And what that means is that there is a fire break around only 14% of the fire, so far from out, and they are extremely concerned about that wind event and that those embers could go flying and start new fires once again. Today we learned that there are now a total of 29 people that have been reported missing and have not been found. Those cases being investigated by both the LAPD and the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. The death toll now stands at 24. Many of those people have not yet been identified, and sadly the sheriff said he expects that number to go up. 48 people have now been arrested on charges of anything from looting to shoplifting to curfew violations to impersonating a firefighter. A very visibly angry district attorney, Nathan Hochman, who himself has been evacuated, called those suspects despicable and disgraceful and said he intends to prosecute them to the full extent of the law. When can you return home? Some evacuation orders are now warnings, so you'll need to check. You may be allowed to return home, but about 92,000 people still remain under an evacuation order, and those orders are not going to be lifted anytime soon, and that is because of the wind event that we are expecting. What about the
Israeli media has interviews of politicians saying the deal is forced surrender by none other than Trump. We caved because of Trump. We caved due to media pressure. This means leaving some of the hostages behind. The reported ceasefire deal is anything but a peace deal. It is a strategic victory for Hamas. Arguably the first modern military victory brought about by an information campaign as the decisive action. All this achieves is more blood and pain further down the line unless the details differ to those leaked. I hope they do. Otherwise, U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East is looking worryingly similar to Caligius's analysis of the Roman Empire. The lying name of an empire. They make it solitude and call it peace. They're blaming TikTok, chat. They're saying we lost the war because of TikTok.
Those alerts, the alerts that we almost all got on our phones in error. Well, according to the Los Angeles County Emergency Management, the glitch has been fixed, and the fire chiefs are begging you to please not turn off that emergency alert, and if you get it, you should go.
And please do not silence the emergency alerts on your telephone. If we send out an alert at 3 a.m. on Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, when you're sleeping, we want you to wake up.
Our professional advice to anybody out there is to make sure you're ready, to make sure you have a plan. We talk about the pets, we talk about the medications. Put your plan together, be ready, and you do not have to wait.
Chief Crowley stressing that if you get an evacuation warning, which means you should be ready to evacuate at a moment's notice, but you have extenuating circumstances. Maybe you have someone in your home with special needs that would need extra time. You heard about the pets, then you should maybe consider evacuating right away. Coming up on Good Day LA, of course, we're going to have much more on both the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Gigi, thank you for all of that information. And again, I think the most important information coming out of there this morning was if you did turn off those alerts, please turn them back on, because I know so many people were frustrated at the time that we were getting those false alerts. But at this time, when we're expecting those winds to pick up, it is incredibly important that people are able to be warned before they're in danger. All right, we're going to move on to talk about residents in these areas who had a really tough time getting connected, right? This was a big issue and still is. And so now they're getting a little bit of help.
Coco McAvoy is live in Malibu with more on that, as well as the growing number of international firefighters arriving to LA. Coco?
Good morning. We are at the incident command post for the Palisades fire, and we can tell you that more reinforcements are here to help battle these fires, which is very important. Take a look at this video. We want to start by talking about the Cybertrucks from Elon Musk. Elon Musk says he's positioning Cybertrucks with Starlink and free Wi-Fi in a grid pattern in the LA and Malibu areas that are in need. A couple of Cybertrucks were already seen deployed and utilized by first responders. And that's not the only resource. Teams from across the world have also stepped in to help. Canada has supplied support, and a crew of more than 70 firefighters and disaster relief workers from Mexico flew in to provide international support. They are joining the more than 14,000 firefighters already battling the Palisades and Eaton fires. Governor Newsom thanked Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum for the support. I spoke with Laura Velasquez Alsua, who is the coordinator for Cineproc, the team from Mexico helping with the fires. She says they are honored to be here to help. She says, I think it is an important opportunity to send help from Mexico to demonstrate the solidarity between Mexico and the United States. We come with...
Notice that she talks about solidarity. This is why they have that 80% approval rating down there. Solidarity, in case you didn't know, is a left-wing dog whistle. Whenever somebody is saying the word solidarity, that means that that's a left-wing dog whistle 99% of the time.
Love and a commitment to help support with the fires. And their help is crucial, too. She tells me they are well-trained and equipped to deal with the terrain here in L.A. The team comes from Mexico's National Forestry Commission and Ministry of Defense. I'll send it back to you.
Coco, thank you.
I was on a DSA Defend migrant call yesterday. We heard from a Marina party member in Congress. President Sheinbaum is rolling out a plan to protect migrants living abroad in response to Trump and ICE raids. This would help all migrants, not just Mexican migrants. Chat can sign up here to get involved. Ooh, this seems cool. Yeah, let's try this out. First of all, I love this art. That's beautiful. Abolition of ICE and the end of persecution, jailing, and deportation of immigrants. Aid to those fleeing from violence. Full labor rights for those who work within the country. Elimination of H-2A, and a firm and unequivocal stance in favor of immigrants and refugees. Amazing. Definitely sign up for that. Why else would Bernie not be president? Why do people attack AOC? Because they're afraid. Because if Bernie Sanders actually became president in 2020 or 2016, he would have had a 60-some% approval rating too. We would be living in a totally different world. And I feel like a lot of people, even somebody who I really like Hasan, are afraid to say stuff like that. Right? They're afraid to believe that if we actually won, it would result in massive change. They have a hard time believing it. Like, they see stuff like this. Like, they have a hard time believing that this type of stuff could happen again, right? Like, they have a hard time believing that this is possible. They can't believe that somebody could win 523 electoral votes. It absolutely could happen again. The election took place as the Great Depression entered its 8th year. Roosevelt was still working to push the provisions of his New Deal economic policy through Congress and the courts. However, the New Deal policies he had already enacted, such as Social Security and unemployment benefits, had provided to be highly popular with most Americans. Landon, a political moderate, accepted much of the New Deal, but criticized it for waste and inefficiency. Roosevelt went on to win the greatest electoral landslide since the rise of hegemonic control between the Democratic and Republican parties in the 1850s. Roosevelt took 60.8% of the popular vote, while Landon won 36.56%. Roosevelt carried every state except Maine and Vermont, which together cast 8 electoral votes. He earned 523 electoral votes, 98.49% of the total, the largest share of the Electoral College for a candidate since 1820, the second largest number of raw electoral votes, and the largest ever for a Democrat. Roosevelt also won by the widest margin of the popular vote for a Democrat in history, though Lyndon Johnson would later win a slightly higher share of the popular vote in 1964 with 61.1%. It could happen again. All right, everybody, that's going to be it for me today. Dream big, believe that we can have a better world, And don't allow yourself to be trapped in these fucking pits of liberal cope where Joe Biden was some sort of left-winger. I have a post on my Twitter that kind of explains what I believe. If you think Joe Biden is a left-wing president, that's insane. He was a right-wing, neoliberal, centrist, genocidal warmonger like every Democrat has been for my entire life. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope the ceasefire in Palestine does happen. Free Palestine. And of course, solidarity forever. If you're in Los Angeles or Southern California, keep vigilant, keep your phone charged, and put together a go bag. All right, everybody. Stay safe, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.